Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the November 19th meeting of the Temple Terrace Community Redevelopment Agency to order. First item of business is to approve the minutes from September 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes or corrections? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no nays. The minutes are adopted. And I believe we will now get a status update rather on the progress on Riverside Park, and our Leisure Services Director, Carl Langfeld, is here to provide an update. Hello.
Good evening, Chairman, agency members. Carl Langfeld, Leisure Services Director, to provide you with an update on progress being made by Health Engineering Associates on the design and engineering work for the Riverside Park properties. Following City Council approval, contract documents were signed and a notice to proceed was issued on July 29th. A kickoff meeting with Health was held on August 8th, and since August 8th, they have completed survey work for boundaries, topographic tree surveys, and wetland boundaries, and they've also completed their environmental site evaluation report and flagged wetland areas. Currently in progress, they're doing geotechnical analysis and investigation, collecting auger borings to determine seasonal high water to help facilitate conceptual design. A Port Tampa Bay pre-application meeting is scheduled for December 4th, and a Swift Mud pre-application is scheduled for December 5th. These meetings are to discuss improvements, potential environmental impacts, permitting requirements, and any required mitigation. The Army Corps pre-application meeting is currently not scheduled. The discussion that I had with the staff from Health just yesterday, Army Corps is currently neck deep in recovery efforts from the hurricanes. What the firms around the state have been told is if you have small projects not related to the hurricane recovery efforts, you're on hold. And that's where they're currently at with Army Corps of Engineer and waiting on word from them on potential available dates. Yesterday afternoon, I met out on site with representatives from Health to review the conditions of the property post-storm and any necessary changes that they have to the conceptual plans that they're working on currently due to tree loss that occurred on the property. Additionally, we looked at those preliminary conceptual plans, reviewed and discussed some of the ideas that they've put on paper thus far. Where we're at right now with them is they are super high level. They are 50,000 foot looking down and saying, where are we generally going to lay things out in this on these properties as it comes to fruition. They showed me some of those things, but what we had discussed, there were so many changes too that I did not feel was appropriate to share tonight because we're moving so many of the parts around that I think it just would have added more confusion to this if I had showed some of those things to you tonight. The first public information and public input meeting to review the cleaned up conceptual plan is scheduled for Thursday, January 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Lightfoot Center. I'll be working with Joel and his team to provide necessary notices and promotions of this meeting out to the public so that way we can get as much public input into this process as we can. Coming up, there are some other notable benchmark dates on their schedule. They are looking to do a presentation to City Council on their conceptual plans in March. They hope to have 90% conceptuals completed by the end of April of 2025 and 90% construction and opinion of probable costs completed by September of 2025. That is where we're at with the design work for Riverside Park. I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Carl. Questions? I have a couple. Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Very good. Two questions. Were there any archaeological findings with their review they did of the site?
They did not find anything of any historical significance that would cause any.
Okay, because when we were doing TCMS, we actually had to stop because they found Indian stuff and pottery and all kinds of stuff, so we have archaeological people up there all the time. Second question, do we as a sitting as a CRA, need to approve things going forward? Or, I appreciate the information here, but will most of it have to, this may not be for you, or will the rest of it go through council?
Yes.
So at this point, I don't think there's anything to approve necessarily.
No, I mean, but going forward, I mean,
Sure, going forward, the CRA would probably make a recommendation to council because this is
Okay.
city property. The council
Okay.
would probably have a say in terms of approving the final design, but we'd probably bring it to the CRA first.
right. I was just curious, that was just an academic, okay, I'm good, thank you. Thank you.
Questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
Yes. So I just want to clarify the timeline process. So they're right now going to produce a very high-level conceptual drawing or a plan. And then that's going to, is it that high-level plan that's going to be presented at Lightfoot, or will that'll come to
They'll be
us?
focused down, what we talked about yesterday was some of their super high level, and they're gonna take that information that we talked about yesterday and focus it down much closer, and then provide the public at that point the opportunity to give their input as to what they would like to see in the park. What we talked about yesterday was layout and location of sidewalks, layout and location of where the pier and the kayak launch would go, where the bridges over the canal would be located, much higher level stuff than what we'll be talking about during the January 23rd meeting.
Okay, so they're going to come with a preliminary.
Narrowed down conceptuals
conceptual
based on what I
plan.
looked at yesterday.
Okay, and then the public is going to look at that, or have the opportunity to look at it along with council at the Lightfoot meeting and give their feedback as to maybe things they'd like to see there, or aspects that they don't like, or.
Yes.
But some of it's going to be restricted as to the property itself. For example, like where a bridge might go, or.
Yes, based on the surveys and what can go in what places and what can't go in certain places. There's some things that we can't move because of the way the properties are laid out. So within those restrictions, and then there's some things that it just makes sense to put in certain places. When I looked at some of the conceptual plans that they had yesterday, they had the pier and the kayak launch in a place that I had not envisioned it, and I had asked them, I said, you might want to move that to where we had originally talked about, because if we put it here, we might have issues with the neighbors saying, hey, when you're standing on the end of the pier, they can look into my backyard. So I wanted them to move it farther towards the bridge. So things like that are what we talked about yesterday.
Okay, so will the plan, actually, the conceptual plan that we present to the public, will we have that out and available for viewing prior to that meeting, or will that be the first opportunity people have to see it?
I can work with the folks at Half and see if I can get materials ahead of time for Joelle to post and for us to post around the city. That way they can kind of see what they're going to be seeing that night. Whether or not it's all going to be ready in time,
Right,
I don't know. But I can ask them that question.
Okay, I mean, I'm only thinking from a marketing point of view, it might help bring more people into the meeting to give their input if they have time to kind of look at it ahead of time. So, all right, that's it for me.
Councilmember Chambers? I have a couple questions, Coral. You said you went down and looked at trees and flooding in the property after the storm. How was it? Did it flood? How deeply did, I mean, were you able to tell? Did we lose trees?
The property itself did not flood. We did not have water intrusion onto the property. So that was good news. We lost a few established trees. I want to say 3, maybe 4 established trees came down between the existing Riverside parcel and the undeveloped parcel. Both lost a few trees, but nothing that is going to significantly impact the design.
Okay, good. The second thing regarding the public meeting, I've been through a lot of these with DOT and the county on, this is where I need you to talk to the architects and kind of give us some candor here. Obviously, we don't have the power to tell elected officials you can't go to the meeting. I mean, if they want to go to a meeting, they go to the meeting. But I have mixed feelings about that. A lot of times I'll stay away from them because people will talk to us and not talk to the engineers that are doing the work. And then that information's not captured. I mean, it's captured by us, But these are the people that are taking these comments back and trying to redraw and take the public comment into account, and then they don't get some of the feedback because people know us, and so they talk to us. Now, they've probably done 100 times more than I have, so I'd kind of like to know what preference on this.
Okay. With regards to attendance by the elected officials.
Yeah, I typically, I usually try to stay away from these on purpose because I don't want, the purpose of the meeting is for them to get the feedback from the public, not for us. The public's gonna have plenty of time to talk to us about it. We're trying to get them to talk to them. Just a thought, and
I will certainly make that inquiry.
if you would let, us know through the city manager or something I mean, and obviously, if somebody wants to go, they're gonna go, but I mean, we have pretty good council members that see the bigger picture, and just let us know what their preference would be.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. I'm not trying to get ahead of you or anything if you wanna go, but, make sense?
That's logical.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you for
very
your
much.
work on this. Like, I know it's a big project, and it's not like you don't have a day job, so, thank you for letting us pile on and pile on and pile on.
Health is doing all the heavy lifting, and they shoot me emails with questions, and I do my best to get back to them in a timely fashion, and so far, everything seems
Thanks
to be
for
running.
taking this on along with all your construction projects in the library, and, I know you've got a lot on your plate, so thank you.
One real quick question.
Yes, sir.
Back when we first started talking about this, you said you guys walked the property and you found an original Temple orange tree.
Correct.
Still there?
I don't think, well, I don't know if it's original Temple orange tree. It
Okay,
appeared
all right,
to
okay.
me, I'm not, that might be a better Joe Ferris question, but we left it there when we did the original clearing of the property. We left that tree there. I don't recall if it's still in place. I'd have to go back and look. I didn't not
If it's
look
still there and it
specifically
is a
for
Temple
yes.
orange, it might not be a bad idea
To
to,
try and save it and put a plaque around it.
something to it, yeah,
How would
to
we
highlight
know?
that. Huh?
How would we know
I have-
a Temple orange tree from a wild orange tree that?
Right, and again,
Joe?
so when they built the bike trails out at Riverfront Preserve, they found a few orange trees back there as well, and whether those are ancestors of the Temple orange groves.
Just curious.
Save the seeds.
Yeah, because that stuff grows up everywhere too. And they don't taste good.
Well,
Those
not-
wild oranges do not,
Very nasty.
Not if they've reverted back to the
Yeah,
root stock of the
yeah.
sour orange.
thank you very much, Mr.
you,
Langfellow.
sir.
Is there any other business? I don't see any. City manager, anything? Council members, any board members, anything? Okay, we'll be adjourned until 6 o'clock, at which time we will convene the council meeting. here tonight, and I know we have a lobby full of our employees as well, so thank you for being here. If you would, please remember to silence your electronic devices, and if you would stand, please join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask your blessings upon our meeting tonight. Grant us wisdom and compassion as we make decisions that impact the common good of all. We pray for those still struggling from the effects of the recent hurricanes. May they feel your comfort and the support of our community. We thank you always for the many blessings you bestow on our amazing city. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. So for those of you who don't frequently visit us, which is most of you, and understandably so, we have a relatively new tradition now that was introduced to us by Councilmember Fernandez when she took office, and that is to begin each meeting with an interesting or historical fact about the city of Temple Terrace or in the region, something that's not widely known. And so in light of our 100-year anniversary coming up next year, we're going to continue this as long as we can keep finding things to talk about. But as the time goes on, it gets harder and harder. So tonight that duty falls on me. And this has to do, ironically, Dr. Weaver, this has to do with the University of South Florida. I didn't really remember that you were going to be here tonight, or I would have probably done something a little different. But this concerns USF. And as most of you who have lived here for a long time know, USF was founded in 1956, but it didn't actually start classes until 1960. So you had that 4 years of construction and planning and clearing land and all those kinds of activities. And so during this time, there was, in 1956 and 1957, they hadn't selected the name of the university. And so this was not an easy thing. And I went back and looked at some Tampa Tribune articles about this, and this was actually quite controversial at the time about what to call this new university. And it was also rather embarrassing for a time because they had selected the first president, Dr. John Allen, but they didn't even know how to introduce him at events because they didn't know what he was president of. And so it was a little awkward. And so in 1957, they got to work on forming committees to select the name. They started this in the spring, and they started this at one point with over 100 submissions for what to call the new university. And so I'm not going to read all 100 of them to you, but there's some really bizarre ones, and there's some that kind of hit close to home here. So some of them are All-State University, Western Hemisphere University, Florida DeSoto University, Ponce de Leon University, Osceola State University, Collins College, the governor was Leroy Collins at the time, Collins College, Collins Temple University of Florida, Henry B. Plant University, although that would have been ironic considering UT's you get it, right? Dan McCarty State University, and I have no idea who Dan McCarty was. Richard Call University, again, I don't know who that is. Professor Ludwig W. Buchholz University, that would have been a mouthful. I don't know what their mascot would have been. That was a long previous superintendent of Hillsborough County Schools. But in 1957, he was already a long time, so I don't know when he was in office. College of the Sunshine State, Gasparilla College. I got a feeling that would have been a party school. Tampa Bay College, Excelsior University, this one's good, Flamerica University, Florida Tropicoast University, we've been explaining that one forever if we got that, International University. The Board of Control had previously twice recommended the name University of South Florida, but both times it was rejected out of hand. Finally, the Board of Control and Board of Education wrangled and wrangled and wrangled, and then around September of that year, they finally agreed on two finalists, Florida Gulf Coast University, which of course we've seen has come back, and University of South Florida was put back on the table. Governor Collins and the cabinet then met to debate the two remaining finalists, and the cabinet rejected both of them. So they started the whole process over again in September. They wrangled between the Board of Control and the Board of Education back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. They finally did settle then on the University of South Florida, although that name had been rejected 3 times. Immediately upon that, though, there were protests from the real South Florida, right? And they were with some legitimacy, I could see all kinds of up in arms about this, because they knew that someday they would be getting a state university also, and Tampa was stealing what should have been the name of their future university. So there was a lot of controversy about that, including in the gubernatorial election that followed this. There was still a lot of haggling about this. Eventually it died down. Well, I think it died down. If I read this to people in Miami, maybe it hadn't died all the way down. But anyhow, a little bit on the naming of University of South Florida. It was not a very easy process. So, and that's all you wanted to know about that. Probably more than you ever wanted to know about that. So thank you for enduring that. Our next item is approval of the minutes from our November 4th meeting. Oh, wait, nope, okay. So you might have noticed that we have an angry mob of employees in the lobby. So we are going to, as quickly as possible, because I know that you have business before us and we don't want to hold you here, but we do want to acknowledge the efforts of some of our employees. These folks have absolutely moved mountains as a result of these 2 hurricanes, and I'm, in some cases, literally, if you saw some of this stuff. So these people have worked, they were working in the hours after the storm, and some of their homes were destroyed by flooding, and they didn't go home. They stayed and worked. It was just, I can't begin to tell you the things that these folks did. So we are hosting a city luncheon for them that's coming up, but we also thought it would be nice to do something for them that the public can see too. And so we're going to call them in one department at a time. Now, they're not on the clock, so some departments will have a lot of people here, and some they've worked, they've been mowing grass all day or whatever, and they just want to go home, and they went home. So don't take their presence or not presence as a sign of their devotion to the city, but if you've been mowing grass all day, you probably want to go home too. So, okay. Right up front and center, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are members of our Code Compliance Department. And our Code Compliance Director, Tom Baroni, to your left, and his staff participated in pre-storm inspections of commercial and residential properties and advised residents to secure loose items on their properties that posed a risk of becoming airborne due to hurricane-force winds. Code staff were also activated as part of the city's damage assessment team for over 2 days while non-essential city operations remained closed. So they went throughout the city surveying the damage and cataloging and so forth, which is a very important part of the process because that's how we start to build our catalog for FEMA reimbursement and so forth. The damage assessment team inspected every area of the city to report structural damage to residential and commercial properties. The team reported many trees down, causing damage to homes and accessory structures. The team also observed and reported on the flooding of streets and homes. And I could, for every one of these departments, I could go on and on and on. I'm not, because I know that you have business, so I could make this 2 hours like really easy because I was here for the whole thing. So thank you, guys. Thank you. Community development. Thought you were going to send them out that way. They don't follow directions, do they? They don't follow. It's like herding cats. Community development folks. Where'd we get them all? I didn't know we had that many community development folks. Did we hire a couple people before the meeting? So these folks are still hard at it. These are the folks that do the permitting and inspections and so forth. And so our director, Greg Pauley, is really took a proactive role in this. He was the one that came to the city manager and suggested some streamlining, some waiving of permit fees, some permit requirements that normally people would have to go through have been waived to enable people to get recovered quicker and easier. But he wasn't told to do any of that. This was Greg and his staff that came up with this proactively. So they really doing a fantastic job. So following Hurricane Milton, Community Development Director Greg Pauley and members of his staff were activated as part of the city's damage assessment team, which we talked about a moment ago. His staff worked with members from legislative, executive, and code compliance, finance, and risk reduction to complete more than 460 damage assessment reports on October 10th and 11th. Those were not fun days, and that was not easy to get through the city at that point, so I was out there watching them do this. And then continuing through the week of October 14th. All damages were documented, photographed, cataloged, and evaluated for monetary losses. To date, the initial losses to our community due to the hurricane's impact are currently estimated to be just under $5 million. And we expect some of that to continue to rise because we're starting to see problems with some of the city infrastructure that took a while to catch up. So thank you all for your efforts.
Better squeeze in together.
Executive.
Executive. So the next are the executive team. Yeah, there's a couple of them here. There we go. So, can Brian put that on autopilot? Okay, he's good. So obviously these are the folks that I worked most closely with during and immediately following the storm. City Manager Bahia, this is his Executive Administrative Assistant Jeannie Barlow. Joelle Duarte is the Marketing and Communications Director, followed Mary and Brian both work on Marketing and Communications. So, folks, I've been in a lot of emergency operations. I've retired from the Sheriff's Office, so I've been in emergency management stuff for 32 years or more now. I have never seen a team that worked more smoothly than this team. And that's coming from, I worked at Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, a pretty squared away place. These guys are the best of the best, right? So, again, I could go on and on and on, but I won't. I'll read from the script. So, City Manager Carlos Bahia and several members of the marketing team staffed the Emergency Operations Center before, during, and after Hurricane Milton. Members of the executive team also served on the city's damage assessment team. In preparation for, during, and after Hurricane Milton, the marketing team posted 214 times across social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, to keep the public informed. The content strategy included a mix of videos, graphics, and reshares of crucial updates and safety information. The team reached 315,297 users on Facebook and Instagram, to include many users outside of the local area. 315,000 people saw their posts. We only have 27,000 in the city. So I'd say they did a pretty good job. And Carlos, Jeannie, you guys, I can't thank enough. So anyway. Finance. Where's finance? They're out there counting the spreadsheets, aren't they? Finance, come on in. These are perhaps the most important folks in the whole place. Because if they stop working, everything stops. People don't get paid, then for some reason they leave. So I have been in office here for 8 years. I've been through several storms here in the city. This was the worst, but it wasn't the first for us. But this is the first with this team. And I have to tell you, they are spot on. I mean, we in the old days, 5 years ago, we were keeping, loose track of what we were doing and stuff. But all of a sudden, they show up with spreadsheets and interactive this and that and the other. I mean, they could tell you that, I ask, well, what does this cost us as of 3 o'clock this afternoon? And they tell you an answer, a concrete answer. This is, what are we burning through every 24 hours in payroll? And they could tell you, boom, this is what we're going through. It was incredible. And so all of that translates into 100% FEMA reimbursement if you have the right records. So this is important to all of you as Temple Terrace residents also. Finance Director Jim Ingram and his team created new payroll processing codes to assist with the proper tracking of work before, during, and after the hurricane. With some assistance from Human Resources, the team completed back-to-back hurricane payrolls and completed documentation of all the FEMA forms needed for reimbursement of city expenses for hurricane-related costs. The team assisted with onboarding emergency vendors and created 2 emergency intent to proceed letters to expedite cleanup efforts. The finance team then started preparing FEMA documentation and processing to allow work on both Helene and Milton to be done simultaneously in order to receive reimbursement in a timely manner. And folks, I tell you that, Jeannie, thank you for the summary, but that doesn't even begin to depict what they really did. So thank you. I gotta squeeze in.
Can I have you all move a little?
Yep, we have to
this
move.
way, so we're centered? In front of it, see better. Thank you.
Send in the fire department. Chief, welcome. So the fire department's contribution to this is probably a little more obvious than some of the others, but in addition to what you might expect, however, our Emergency Operations Center is located in the downstairs of Fire Station 1 on Bullard Parkway. So in their house, they have the mayor and the city manager and the finance team and the communications team. Everybody from all these city departments is working out of their, I don't know what they do there, what's your training room, right? I guess so. So how would you like to have the whole city management structure move into your home for a week? Because that's literally what we did. And so thank you for putting up with us. I'm sure we left a big mess. I know we left your refrigerator a mess anyway, I know that. So Fire Chief Kemp and his team set up the Emergency Operations Center to facilitate preparation measures and coordinate response efforts across multiple departments. Pre-storm meetings were held to ensure that all personnel were prepared, and meetings were coordinated with other city departments to create a unified response strategy. Throughout the storm, the fire department worked in close collaboration with county, state, and national weather agencies, attending multiple in-person and virtual meetings. Fire and EMS teams responded to over 100 storm-related calls during the emergency declaration period, including downed power lines, fallen trees, EMS calls, and even a structure fire. The department demonstrated exceptional teamwork in managing these calls and ensuring swift response times amid challenging circumstances. After the storm passed, the fire department set up and staffed a point of distribution site for 2 days, providing critical supplies and support to the community. So thank you all so much for all you did during the storm. We appreciate that. Anyone not in uniform, you want to stand out. Thank you, gentlemen. Human Resources. Thank you all for your patience. I know you've got business. I appreciate you. Human Resources, another one like Finance that wouldn't immediately come to mind like Fire and Police, but without HR operating in the background, we would have been a mess. And so I could go on and on about all the work that our new HR director and his staff are doing. We're really excited about some of the things they're doing besides the hurricane stuff. So, Human Resources Director Tony Nazario and his staff, which is bigger than this, really, they just went home, I guess. And his staff worked well past business hours to have an emergency payroll process prior to the arrival of the hurricane. Adding to this challenge, all fiscal year and end changes on, I'm going to just start over with that one. Adding to this challenge, all fiscal year-end changes and October 1st salary changes had to be entered during this payroll, so we had a pay increase that occurred straddled during this time. Staff also worked to complete and submit all applicable payroll reports to partner companies, including 401A, 457B, and health savings account contributions. In addition, HR managed a number of storm-related liability and property claims such as sewer backups, fallen trees, and damaged property, etc. This is also our risk management department. HR also partnered with the Leisure Services Department to coordinate volunteer efforts for staffing the National Guard point of distribution while they were here in telecom. So, Tony, thank you to you and all your staff. Information technologies. Hello. This is our IT director and one of her staff members. Again, a lot of people have worked all day. Well, you're not that small. You're small, but not that small, so welcome. IT Director Sally Cabrera and her staff served at the city's Emergency Operations Center. She and her staff provided communications and application support during the storm to ensuring that everything was running smoothly, especially the city's 911 and CAD system. So that makes it sound pretty simple this way, but we moved the 911 center from the first floor of this building down to the EOC at the fire station. That's not a 15-minute process. And so when you put that on a synopsis, it doesn't really reflect the work and coordination that's involved in that, because you can't have your 911 calls go on. I mean, that has to start before this one can stop, kind of thing. And so I know IT's kind of like, it all sounds really good when it works. You take it for granted, but when it doesn't work, everything comes to a standstill. So thank you very much, Sally and your team. Legal. Kind of like HR and finance, legal is far more important than people really, legal, right? You can't do anything without legal, right? You can lay all these good plans, you think you know how everything's going to go, and then the attorneys will say, no, that's not how it's going to go. You can't do that. And so most of the time, they're not the people that you want to see walking through your door, because it's usually that telling you that you can't do something you want to do the way you want to do it. But when there's a hurricane around and you have to do everything exactly the right way in order to get reimbursed or in order to not run afoul of Florida statutes, you're really glad to see them, even if you don't really want to hear what they're telling you. It's good that you do. And so City Attorney Pam Shoshone and Deputy City Attorney Ernie Mueller. In this case, this really is kind of a small shop. This is the whole thing, right? And so they didn't go home, they're here. They reviewed and approved the declaration of the state of emergency, but that doesn't really capture all the things that they did. They have to review, make sure we're in FEMA compliance, make sure that we're not exceeding the authority granted to us by the state of emergency, and that our state of emergency doesn't conflict with the counties and the state. So there's a lot of detail that goes into the states of emergency, and so that synopsis doesn't really do you justice, but we know what you did, and so thank you very much. Still think we should do it our way. Legislative. City clerk. So this is our city clerk, Cheryl Mooney, as you can tell from her name tag. She has a small shop too. There are only 3 full-time and 1 part-time in her shop. So they are going home and they do have a small shop. But that doesn't lessen the importance of the functions that they serve, whether it's during a hurricane or on a regular basis. These meetings would not happen. These meetings don't happen. No meetings happen without the city clerk, right? We wouldn't even know how to publicly notice and have a meeting if it weren't for the city clerk. We couldn't even meet. We wouldn't know how to do it. So, City Clerk Cheryl Mooney served on the city's damage assessment team. Her staff was involved and also in the preparation and execution of the emergency order. But literally, Ms. Mooney was out on the street in the neighborhoods doing damage assessment with some of the other teams that we've mentioned. So she was out in the field, although that is certainly not part of her normal duties. In Temple Terrace, we all kind of take off whatever hat we're normally wearing and we just kind of get whatever, we just kind of do what everybody has to do. And so we really appreciate everything that you have done during the hurricane and the rest of the time, and please pass that on to your staff as well. Leisure services, I don't know where to start with this one. This is one of our bigger departments. Leisure services is Parks and Rec and the library combined. So they have a lot of employees. Hi. But we're down to 5 here. How many employees do you have in your shop? You have a lot.
Oh, boy.
Over 100.
Employees between Parks and Rec and the library,
Yeah.
probably in peak season, 130.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're one of the largest, yeah, so I can't begin to tell you everything that they did during a hurricane, I really can't, so I won't even try, I'll just read this, because nothing happens in the city without these people, I can tell you, so. Leisure Services Director Carl Langfeld and his team secured city facilities in preparation for potentially damaging wind and rain. The grounds crew assisted Public Works with sandbagging services, and other staff members coordinated efforts with the school district to prepare Temple Terrace Elementary for use as a city employee shelter. It's right behind the EOC, so everybody that works in the EOC just goes back to the school to sleep. And if you sleep at all, then you go back to the EOC. Food for employees who needed to work during the activation period was also arranged through local vendors. Little secret there, you don't starve during hurricanes, right? You will get fat during a hurricane. During the storm, members of staff manned the city employee shelter, and following the storm, the grounds crews worked with Public Works to clear the roads, followed by the parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields. Comfort stations were set up at the library and at Lightfoot Center. I'll pause there for a second because the library was fantastic. You guys opened up. We didn't have power at the rec center. We didn't have power at Lightfoot for a while. And the library was not supposed to be open for patrons, but they opened it up to let people come and sit in the air conditioning, charge their phones. And then they realized pretty shortly that, look, we got people, we got books, just let them open it. So they just kind of gave up and opened the library and let everybody. They allowed residents to access to power for charging their devices and air conditioning. Staff also assisted with the point of distribution site at the Verizon facility in Telecom Park, where over a 2-day period, 9 semi-truck loads of water, MREs, tarps, and ice were distributed to the public. So again, I don't know where to begin to thank you for, this doesn't really capture everything you did. And I mean, at the same time, they're cleaning up the rec center while the power's out and the facility's closed. They're getting late for, I mean, that just went on and on and on. So thank you to you and your staff. We appreciate it. Yeah, we probably want to scoot down and get in the middle here. There we go. Police. I bet we have 2 or 3 of them here. It's one of our larger departments also. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing, Captain? Good. We don't usually see this many of you in the same place at the same time unless there's trouble. It's good to see everybody. So, I'm gonna read the synopsis, but I can't tell you enough about what these folks have done. Even before the storm, I was out there with Public Works, and we're working at the sandbags, filling sandbags and load them up. And the police are there with security for the sandbag operation. But the next thing you know, the officers who's there providing security is over there filling sandbags also, which I know is not really what they're supposed to be. But they were providing security too. But these folks, all of them, are jump-in kind of people. No matter what you're doing, they will jump in, whether it's directing traffic or filling sandbags or whatever it is you're doing. If they walk by and you're doing it, they're going to jump in and help do whatever it is you're doing. So, Police Chief Ken Albano, who is out of town and not with us tonight, and his team provided vital community support, worked with the relief organizations, checked on vulnerable residents, delivered supplies, and offered reassurance to residents. Additional police officers were deployed to the streets throughout the city in order to provide enhanced visibility to the residents. On the day of the storm's arrival, officers continued to respond to calls until just after 9 p.m. When sustained tropical force winds made it too dangerous. Despite the presence of continued strong winds and rain, officers are once again deployed to the streets at 3 a.m. in an attempt to locate a major water line failure. They quickly located a significant water line break at the Avenue Apartments, so it's their fault that we had the boil water notice, right? After the storm passed, with debris everywhere, down power lines, and other hazards in the streets, officers immediately began responding to calls for assistance, conducted preliminary damage assessments, established traffic control points, and quickly set up 4-way stops at key arterial intersections, mostly along Fowler Avenue. I drove through them a bunch of times. You guys did a great job with that. They also provided mandatory security and physically assisted residents retrieve essential items from the city's point of distribution site in Telecom Park. Again, they did much more than that. I can tell you I was out there for a week and a half on every day, and you guys were all over it. I saw you out there helping citizens and picking up stuff, and so I want to thank you all very much for that. How are you going to do this? Public Works, oh my goodness. This is a short book here, could be. So if this was a Super Bowl, right, Public Works would be the MVP. I mean, everybody did yeoman's work, but Public Works has knocked it out of the park. Where are they? There they come. There they are. Hey, Mike. How are you? So this is just a small sampling of the people that work in Public Works, but I was talking about Public Works does a lot of things. They work on a lot of things, and so these guys probably went home, right? They don't want to come back here, so I get it. I don't even know where to begin to tell you the things that they've done. They have moved mountains here. They have absolutely. I just don't even know what to say. I wish you could have shadowed me after the storm to see what they've done, and they're still doing it. So, Jason Warrenfelds is the director, fairly new to the city. We recruited him to come here. He's probably regretting his decision at this point, but just a rock star. I mean, just reinventing that whole department, top to bottom, and so a real rock star. So, Public Works Director Jason Warrenfelds split his crew into 3 teams to quickly clear debris from all city streets. Members of his team also provided assistance to the Utilities Department to assist with water line repairs. A crew of 8 worked continuously through the storm, experiencing only 4 hours of downtime when sustained tropical force winds made it too dangerous to work. 4 hours. Okay? After the storm passed, the ground crews cleared debris from access areas to all city buildings to ensure non-essential city operations could reopen to the public. Sanitation staff assisted the street crew in clearing the roadways, with some employees working for days without taking time off in order to assure that sanitation division could get caught up. The fleet staff kept the equipment running efficiently, replaced vehicle tires as needed, and addressed sanitation truck hydraulic issues quickly. Administrative staff answered and are still answering large volumes of calls for service, and some of those callers are not real nice sometimes. Facilities maintenance completed pre- and post-storm evaluations to all city buildings and determined that all of the buildings had little to no storm damage. I want to add a little bit to this. I could add a lot, but I won't. But I do want to add a little bit. So some of these crews, Mike is included in this. Mike, one of our grounds crew workers. These folks helped prep the city for Hurricane Helene. And then when Helene passed by, they helped clean up the debris. We had some tree debris and stuff from Hurricane Helene, which looked pretty bad until we got Milton. Then they turned right around and started sandbag operations for Hurricane Milton and cleaning up the city, right, to get stuff off of the storm drains from Helene so that it didn't go down the storm drains. Then we went through the second storm, Milton. They got 4 hours of sleep. And then they immediately went out before sunup to start clearing off Milton, which they're still doing. So some of these folks, I don't know, Carlos and I were talking several times about, I don't know when Jason slept. I don't know if he ever went home, but because he was always there. It's like, shouldn't he be sleeping at some point? And I mean, he was always there. And I worked with Mike on some of this, and I remember saying, you know, he and the crew, like, aren't you guys getting kind of tired? And it's like, yeah, a little bit. So thank you all. Last one, utilities, ooh. Where's utilities? Are they coming in? So I have to tell you, I worked with a lot of the public works guys and gals out in the field, clearing debris and filling sandbags and stuff like that. And I thought, you know what, I'm servant leader that I am, I'm gonna go out and join up with the utilities guys and to see if I can help them fix some of these water mains and stuff. No, no. I was a good cheerleader for them, but, no, I'm not doing that. So these guys do stuff that's incredible, amazing. And I've been around the city for a long time and just working, seeing what they did in the field during, I mean, just pits filled with water. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible, right? And so it was an eye opener for me, and I've been around for a while. So Utilities Director Troy Tinch and his crew worked as a unified team to tackle large work efforts throughout the city. And I mean large in some cases. During the storm, the city's potable water distribution system experienced a system-wide loss of pressure due to a combination of widespread power outages and numerous water breaks, resulting in a boil water notice for the entire utility service area, which is larger than the city. There's about 35,000 water accounts, so it's larger than the city. Plant operators worked with outside agencies to clear the notice within 7 days of the storm's landfall. After the storm passed, staff worked to repair 15 water main breaks and over a dozen service line repairs. Wastewater collection staff conducted 3 gravity sanitary sewer main repairs located along West River and 53rd Street. Crews also worked to refuel generators. I remember that. Refuel generators and perform the manual pumping of over 30 lift stations within the city. Crews worked 24/7-hour shifts for a 7-day period to ensure the wastewater system continued to function until power was restored. Crews also worked to keep the city's 30-plus lift stations operational due to the loss of electric power. So this doesn't really give you the whole story. So I'll tell you now because it's past. We were literally hanging on by a thread there for a long time when it comes to water. So the water main breaks that we talked about, 15 of them, the system lost pressure. I'm supposed to have 60 pounds of pressure. We got down to 10 right at one point. If we'd have had a fire during that period of time, we wouldn't have been able to fight it, right, Chief? Isn't that what you told us? So they got this system restored. And then, I don't know, what was it, 10 o'clock at night, Troy tells the city manager and me that, hey, you know, we're in trouble. We're going to run out of diesel fuel. And all of our, takes 36 facilities to run the water system. Between pumps and water treatment facilities, takes 36 different facilities, and all of them were without power and running on generators, which system's functioning according to backup plan. Well, but we had ordered diesel and it didn't show up, and so the generators were running out of power, running out of fuel. And so he says, hey, we're getting down to like less than a quarter of a tank at the water treatment plant, and the pump associated with that, if we lose that, 35,000 people are going to be without water. You think they're grumpy without power? Wait till they don't have water either. And so we started to get to work on that. But we literally, Troy and these guys, literally, we started buying diesel from a farmer in town, M&B Products. And we went and we were moving diesel at 100 gallons, 200 gallons at a time in the back of pickup trucks. And what'd you go for? 12, 14 hours it took you to drive around? So Dale and Daniel McClellan of M&B Products helped us out of that situation, and we bought diesel from them, and these guys went and carried diesel around in cans to keep the water system going. So we made it through. We finally got some diesel from somebody, but we were this close. And then had it not been for Troy and these guys, we would have not only been without power, you wouldn't have been able to flush your toilets or anything. So thank you for that. Thank you for your patience with that. We have some of the most wonderful employees anywhere, and it's, you know, we don't get much of a chance, so I know that was long, but I appreciate your patience with that. So next, we have a presentation from Dr. John Weaver, who is here with us tonight, and he's the president of Florida College, and he's going to give us a update on the college's plans for Sutton Hall. Welcome, Dr. Weaver.
I just want to add my appreciation to the city for the work over the past few weeks. Amazing work on the part of all those. I also want to say thank you to the mayor, who just did an extraordinary job in communication to the community. I'm telling you, Mayor, if this gig doesn't work out, you have a future as a social media influencer.
No, that's
because,
Joel. He
was
just
really-
tells me what to do.
Will you join me in stating our appreciation for our mayor? Well, I want to come because I think it was announced last time the council was together that we're needing to let go of Sutton Hall at Florida College. And so I wanted to come and give some word of an explanation. I want to share with you, this is a moment at FC of grief. It really is a moment of grief. You know, grief has stages when you need to let go of someone or something. A public person or a public building requires a certain public statement of acknowledgement of what's going on. I want to talk with you about that because I know it's a shock. You know, they say that grief has stages. I don't know about that, but I think it does. You know, grief, they say, has denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I may be in the depression stage still. I don't know, not quite to the acceptance, but I want to explain this because this is not something that we have done quickly, precipitously, without concern. I want to briefly say three things about this, giving a kind of a history, and then hand it over to some colleagues who have worked with us and helped us come to this difficult conclusion. And I'll share that with you here in just a moment. So if you look, there's a history here. I just want to have a minute just to explain. I'll not go through all of this. We honor the history of this building, which was, you know, opened in 1922. It actually sat unoccupied for a number of years after the golf course sold it. It actually was owned by a Bible Institute, not Florida College, another school for a number of years in the 30s and 40s. It was taken over by a private developer who actually let the building degrade. We have a number of evidences of how poor the building was when the college took it over in 1946. And we inhabited it for a number of purposes for all those years, over 75 years. We've had Sutton Hall as part of our Florida College family. And then in 2017, because of code issues, we ceased inhabiting the building with residents. And so since that time, I want to share with you that over the past really 7 years or so, we have worked with a number of agencies, including efforts at grants and fundraising, to try to find a way to renovate the building. So over the past few years, we've tried to find how we could bring it back to life. And these efforts have hit repeated roadblocks, both in terms of the fundraising, but also the findings of different agencies, which you see right here on the screen that we've worked with really since 2018. Now, in the past year, those efforts accelerated as we realized more of the challenges that we face with building codes. I don't need to tell this council how the hurricane building codes have changed the landscape of construction and renovation in Florida since the 1990s. And as we came to grips with this, we realized that this was going to require some different thinking about the building. And so it brings us to where we're at today. I'm going to introduce you to some principals at Saul Design Studios and Franklin Development Corporation, which we've worked with over the past year at the college, which really helped us realize that any restoration of this building, given current codes, would not allow us to return to the original appearance of the building, nor to the functionality of the building. Far from it. Both the aesthetics and the functions would be very different than what we see today, and that is a reality of codes that have been in place really for over 30 years. And so I want to bring you around to this realization that we're not able to continue with Sutton Hall. We plan to demolish it, sadly, next year, and we'll look to construct a new building on the site, which would be of service to the community and college in ways that we look forward to. We look forward to recognizing the history of that building in the new building with an overture to the history of the Sutton Hall that has been there for, 100 years. And so we look forward to honoring that. I want to turn over for the next 10 minutes to a couple of of colleagues from Sol Design and Franklin Development. Ryan Colleen is a contractor, someone who's worked with us with a number of engineers, and Carlos Molnar of Sol Design Studio are eminently qualified to help us think through the future of this building, help us understand what has been and what we need to do. So I think Carlos, so Ryan is going to come up and share with you. And the point of this is to help you understand what we heard and the rationale for the decisions we've come to. I hope it's helpful to you at this point. Ryan, please.
Mr. Mayor, Council, good to see you this evening. So we were charged with evaluating the building and putting together a specialized team to look at this building through the lens of a restoration. So over a period of several months, we looked at finding some of the best partners, including Emerald Engineering, which is one of the premier mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire and life safety engineering corporations in the mid-state, as well as BMW Structural, which again is one of the premier structural engineering firms in the mid-state, and Sol Design Studio, who I've partnered with before, but is one of the leading restoration, historical restoration firms in the mid-state as well. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but we put that team together to do what I would consider to be a very detailed look into this building to see what it was going to take to be able to remodel it and restore it. So a little bit about Franklin Development Corporation, but not much, which would be slide 2, which I don't know if you have up there. Ah, lovely, thank you. Slide 2, Franklin Development Corporation has been in existence as a general contractor since the mid-'80s. We have, at this point, almost 1,400 ground-up builds across the mid-state since the mid-'80s. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Construction Officer, Franklin Development Corporation. I've done almost $1 billion in contracts in my career, several of which are historical remodels, but we serve proudly the Tampa area as well as Orlando, all the way over to the East Coast, and as a commercial general contractor. Sol Design, who I spoke to you a little bit a moment ago, this is Carlos Molnar, who has served as president of the AIA, both Tampa and the large S, and I'll let him talk a little bit about his firm right now.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for your time. As Ryan indicated, I'm the founder and managing principal of Sol Design Studio. I was the AIA Tampa Bay representative, but I was also elected to the state board of the AIA. I was also appointed to the Surfside Task Force. I was one of 3 architects in the state to assist the state legislature to work on the State Bill 4B that was just recently enacted and passed to prevent such tragedies. I've also been an adjunct professor at USF, where I did teach materials and methods of construction. As Brian indicated, we've been brought into many projects specifically for the historic component to it. Here's a short list of it, and the font's a little small, but we do, first of all, our office is located in Ybor City, which is, a lot of you know, that's one of the premier historic districts in town. We've done multiple projects, including the one that you see here, the Italian Social Club. We did a considerable renovation on the Centro Studiano, as well as the Cuban Club. We were brought on to liaison with the structural engineer and the architects for that project as well. We also were actually, through developers, brought to Puerto Rico, where we worked on the historic Vanderbilt Hotel, which was both a restoration and a renovation in a very challenging environment to really bring that historic structure back into compliance. And lastly, we've even gone to New Jersey, where we flew out with a different developer to work on the rehab of the Great Gorge Hotel in northern New Jersey. So we have gone throughout the United States on different, specifically for historic renovation. I'm going to give it back to Ryan to just say a few words.
Sure. Yep. So again, Carlos and his firm, from an historical remodel perspective, to be able to preserve the look and the feel of the building as it is. Us as a Class A general contractor, to look at a means and methods perspective of getting it to a restoration, as well as BMW Structural and Emerald Engineering to look at it from MEPS. Over a period of months, we had multiple site visits out there, crawled underneath the building, took pieces of drywall off, took pieces of ceiling off, did lots of measurements, lots of testing, asbestos testing, lead paint testing, all of which have been consolidated down into some findings that Carlos is going to share with you at this point through the different trades.
So I'm just going to go through a few trades here. We're going to start with HVAC. HVAC, as a lot of you know, is a significant part of the building, specifically to keep moisture out, to condition the space. The existing chilled water plant has deteriorated and is no longer functional. A lot of the current HVAC units are older units. They also do not employ CO2 in terms of outside air. For the type of assembly with both student buildings, classrooms, and especially assembly halls, you really do need outside air because it replenishes the carbon dioxide that's expelled to create a safe environment. It also, as indicated, when you lose power, the moisture begins to intrude. The HVAC system is a critical component to kind of balancing the system and removing a lot of the moisture from in. So a lot of the current systems that are in the building were not functioning properly, as well as they weren't meeting current codes. One of the more evident parts, and this room is a great example, the current structure is about 9 foot tall, and that is from the floor structure to the ceiling or the floor above structure. Those are solid wood joists, so there's no ability to go through there. So the actual structure in this room is probably a good 3 or 4 feet above the ceiling we're at. There is no ability to run ductwork, fire sprinklers, conduit through the structure, so everything has to come down. And this is a good picture to show you that what would happen should we begin to put the ducts within the spaces in a normal type commercial building as we're in here. The ceilings would have lowered to somewhere between 7'4" and 7'6". In some of those places, minimum code is 7'6", so you can barely even make minimum height for code. And these are long corridors where we would supply all the air for a lot of the buildings. So that was a deficiency that there was no way to be able to grapple with outside of raising the entire structure, which was basically impossible to do due to the age of the building. Also, there was no supply. There was some supplies, but there were no return ducts throughout the structure. Fire sprinklers were another one that would begin to take up that space between the underside of the structure and the ceilings. And then basically there was no space left. A lot of the beautiful elements, the crown moldings, the trims, a lot of those beautiful elements of Sutton Hall would have been hidden all underneath ceilings like this one with grid, just to be able to put the essential code required infrastructure into the building. Next is electrical fire protection. Throughout the building, and a lot of you may know this from some of the older buildings, there is active knob and tube. Knob and tube is something that was originally the beginnings of in terms of electrical power, where it is just a ceramic piece that's penetrated a wire that's cloth wrapped and it's run throughout the building. It has not been code compliant for many years, and it's run throughout the entire building, and it is active throughout the building. The current service for this building is 400 amps. A lot of you's house have more amps than 400 amps, but right now what's currently run to this building is significantly less than what we anticipated for a building of this size, which would be more like 1,600 to 1,800 amps. So it's a fraction of the code required, or even the ability to power the systems within this building. All the wiring, because of this, in order to go through and rehab, all the interior finishes would have to be removed in order to get access to the wiring, which would be in the floor, the walls, and the ceiling, which would effectively remove the entire finishes throughout the building. And then, as I indicated before, the fire sprinkler, there were some systems in place from fire alarms. None met current code. They would all have to be removed and reinstalled with sprinklers within that space. ADA stairs, ramps, and elevators. The entry, of a lot of you that have been to it, the entry is quite high. There's immediately some steps. You go to a midpoint landing. You then go to some more steps at a landing that you've arrived in the main lobby. Then the wings are an additional raise, some other steps that go up. And just to bring up a ramp or any kind of entry structure, it's a 54-inch, what we've measured is about 54 inches from grade, which would require more than a 60-foot long ramp. There are other ways to get up to these stairs, which would involve some lifts. Those lifts would usually have to be inboard of the corridors, because for emergency egress, you need the corridors. So those are all things that begin to take up. And the fact that they occur at so many different intervals, it would even be difficult to put in a code-required elevator that would connect all these different staggered levels with one elevator so that you would have accessibility each floor. There was no one central point that we could find that we'd be able to establish. So we'd have repeated systems throughout the building to just get accessibility. Also, these corridors, if you're familiar, it's a Y-shaped building. each of the corridors is a dead-end corridor. There is, in a commercial building with the quantity of people that we would have, you need to have two means of egress, so that if the fire was in the central part of the building, you have another way to get out of the building safely, which is why at no point you can have no more than between 20 to 30 feet, depending on the building, of space before you can get to a safe exit. In order to make this building compliant, we'd have had to remove a portion of the end of every one of the wings and install a cement or a concrete masonry fire stair that would provide the protection and the egress for accessibility. That obviously would have a very damaging effect on all three of the wings, and including the center stair, which when we were brought onto the project was told that this is really something that's a vital part of the history and the love of this building. We would have to remove this stair. It is not compliant. The treads and the risers are staggered. There's a rhythm to them. They're not wide enough. So there would have had to been a removal and a reconstruction of the stairs just to bring them up to code compliance, because it is the central connecting. It is a path of egress. Also, the railings are quite low, and this is very typical for historic buildings where they're just below your hip. This would require a 42-inch guardrail as well as a 36-inch handrail. So we would have had to redo all the treads, remove all the steps, redo all the railings, and install a guardrail, at which point it is almost a complete reconstruction of that ceremonial stair to bring it into egress compliance for life safety. Envelope. Envelope really is talking about the exterior of the building. If you've been by recently, you'll see there's rather large cracks for movement. The structure is a masonry foundation structure with wood, kind of historic wood framing that goes up, and then a wood framed roof. That involves some movement. The historic put a wood lath with metal and wood lath onto the structure, and it's actually quite a strong material as it goes historically. It can be quite strong. The problem isn't with that extra material is the fact that it's the wood behind it. The wood behind it moves. It has a different expansion and contraction ratio than the stucco does or the cement does. And when those move, which in Florida we have highs and lows, water infiltration, the water's gotten in, it's caused the structure to move, and there's large cracks in the stucco, which causes water to begin to move through the envelope and work its way down. As we begin to talk about moisture, one of the most fundamental things of all of our facades is a vapor barrier, keeping the 80-85% relative humidity out of your structure, because that's where you can begin to get with heat and water. That's where mold and mildew begin to become active. Your air quality begins to be diminished. The vapor barrier was an old, early 1900s tar paper type of vapor barrier. It has almost, we actually have rooms on the inside where we remove the finishes so we can get access to the backside to review the vapor barrier. It's almost completely disintegrated throughout the building. Code requires us, for the point of not just using energy to constantly throw dry, cold air, we have to prevent the moisture from coming in, the vapor drive to move its way through the cement plaster and into the buildings. So we would have to remove a lot of that stucco just to put that new vapor barrier throughout the building so we could prevent that moisture infiltration. Lastly, the windows and the doors. None of the windows and doors have appropriate headers. If you're familiar with the header, it's a structural element because all the exterior walls are bearing, which means there's trusses bearing and pushing down. The headers are typically a structural beam between an opening. All of those headers are currently sills, which means they're turned in the weakest dimension for wood. It is a non-structural, and it's nothing with regards to hurricanes of connecting an impact-rated window. It has to be an appropriate opening. None of the windows nor doors in Sutton Hall have the appropriate, even if we put a brand new window in, we would have to reframe every opening to give it the appropriate weight and strength to resist the hurricane winds that would be hitting the window or door itself. Lastly is structure. What you're looking at in your slide is the methodology that we've used. So you have different kinds of loads in a building. You have gravity load, which is pushing down. You have lateral loads, which push the building left and right. But we in Florida are lucky enough to have a third load, which a lot of people don't, which is uplift. Uplift is what most of the buildings are driven by, because what it is the event of the hurricane actually lifting the building up, digging its fingers, the wind's fingers, into your eaves and basically pulling the building apart. that is one of the most challenging loads to handle, and it's unique to especially South Florida, but it's a very unique thing for Florida, as we've experienced 3 times this year, as we've talked about. Nothing in this building is actually connected with any type of connector or infrastructure that would tie the building together. The masonry footers just have it's just a large lumber sitting on top of it with no connecting, and the studs are penny nailed or nailed on angles through to basically connect it. This is a methodology we've used before, which is it's kind of a colloquial go-bolt system, and you're basically taking a threaded rod from the absolute foundation, and every 4 to 6 feet you're running a threaded rod all the way up the vertical, every 6 feet up the walls. You then are tying to your roof. Well, our roof is made up, because of the size of the building, is made up of multiple pieces, and they're lapped, which, if you know, when you try to fasten 2 long boards together and you move it, that lap is quite critical. There's no medical connectors. So not only do we have to tie the go bolt to the ridge, we have to then tie the rafters together and create a continuous envelope of connection from the foundation to the roof to back to the foundation in almost a continuous path. That would all be well and good, except for the fact that our foundations cannot handle the uplift. So not only would we have to go in and tie them with this vertical connection, we'd actually have to bring in underpinning devices, which is a foundation mechanism, which would go into each of the foundations and drive underpinning piles in order to have the appropriate uplift to connect the building to meet the hurricane codes that we exist with this particular region. That would involve removal of most of the inside floors, the inside joists. Because the building is up high, as you indicated, we can crawl underneath it. You'd actually have to bring in special machinery to lift it into the building, then lower it back to the soil as you're working on the inside to drill piles on both the inside and the outside, because you have interior columns and exterior columns. So you can't just work from just the outside and work your way around, which would involve basically removing most, if not all, of the ground floor and the beams and the joists, just to get access to put the foundations into the ground floor. So with that, those are the critical kind of 5 big keys. I'm going to let Ryan kind of wrap up this up.
So I recorded that, and I'm going to run it through Google Translate for everybody to be able to interpret later. But in summation, around constructability, because the exterior stucco and the wood is kind of the diaphragm of the building, it's holding it together. All the wood and stucco on the outside is keeping it together. We can't just go and remove that exterior sheathing, or the building would fall down. So it has to be done in small segments. So as you can see here, we looked at it through a 6-phased approach, and I'll kind of summarize it and just go, we have to do this restoration in 20 to 30 foot segments. I don't know if you've been through a lot of historical remodels here in Temple Terrace, but the building department would be getting a request for an engineered letter every 3 days as we go to the next section. And it would probably, in our estimation, take an additional 10 to 14 months above normal construction schedules to do this, because we could only do this restoration in a 20-foot segment at a time. And if you look at those wings of the building, there's a lot of those. So the timing and constructability becomes problematic. And to wrap this up, because I think that we're just about out of time, to translate what Carlos said into very layman's terms, there's not a piece of roof that would be left because of the asbestos. There would not be a piece of floor that's left in this building because it would have to be taken out to do underpinning underneath it. There's not an interior wall that would be left because we have to demo all of the electrical and the plumbing and the mechanical. There's not an exterior wall that would remain because we have to take off the outside sheathing. There's not a staircase that would remain because none of them are code compliant. So I want you just to imagine, with everything that's going to come out of this building, my team on one side of the building and your team on the other, and we're having a conversation through it because the only thing that's left is the studs. That's where we're at. That would be the only thing that's preserved from history, are the studs, and even that, only about 60% of them, because we have to put in headers and structurally renew some of these things. So the ability to be able to restore this building becomes unfeasible and unrecognizable. None of the columns that you would normally see coming in with the beautiful headdresses on them, they'd all be under ceiling. None of the floors would remain. Fireplaces would be gone. The staircases would be gone. The roof would be gone. All of the plumbing and electrical and mechanical is all out of there. And you would have zigzagging ramps, 60 to 70 feet in the front and back of the building, and huge staircase mezzanines at each wing. It would not be something that you would recognize as Sutton Hall. So that, I think pretty much sums up, and we can talk a bit about student safety. But even if I were to go through all of that and remodel it, I would still not be able to waterproof the basement that's on this building. And so you would, nor would I be able to put a vapor barrier underneath the building. So you would be fighting moisture for the rest of the life of this building, potentially having mold issues with life safety with students living in there, and maybe even looking at a remodel like this within 25 to 30 years, again. That's where we're at with the building in our professional opinion. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Weaver. Thank you for your time, Mayor.
Well, wasn't
Councilmember.
that uplifting? So, stages of grief, right? And so you recognize what we've been through trying to understand what we're facing here. And so it is a kind of depressing situation. We moved to the stage of acceptance, and we're looking forward to what we can put there in its place. And we currently plan to have components of Sutton Hall built into the new building, with pictures and recollections of what it's meant both to the community and to the college. We want to honor our past even as we look forward to a bright future. And we wanted to explain that to you because it's a loss for our community. And we don't celebrate, in fact, we grieve it. But we also want to do it, we try to do it as conscientiously and as expertly as we could, and wanted to explain it to the community. And I look forward to additional conversation about this as we go forward. Thank you all for your kind attention tonight.
Thank you, Doctor. There may be some questions from
course,
the council. So, council members?
It was pretty concise. Yes. I don't know.
Questions?
I do.
Councilmember Fernandez?
So I think my questions are probably more for the restoration team than for the college. And so my questions are, if you look at Flagler College and you look at the buildings that were not long ago purchased from Florida East Coast Railway, CSX, to become dorms, they have all their original stairways and the original elevators. I know I actually worked in that building. I audited Florida East Coast Railway. So I know it's the same. And my son lived there for a year. So those don't meet code today. So how are, and there are other buildings on Flagler where the stairs don't meet code as far as the rise, et cetera. So how are they able to restore those historic buildings and not meet code? Now, I know that there are other problems, maybe with the construction of this building, but I don't understand. How are the stairs able to not meet code in other historic buildings, but they would need to meet code in this building? And students do live in those buildings.
Stairs with regards to the main stairs and historic stairs, if they're the grand stairs and such, a lot of times the load will be taken off with other stairs like we talked about, fire stairs. On a lot of historic buildings, and you even see them in Ybor City, you'll have exterior stairs that are attached to the building. Those are the actual stairs. So in an event of emergency, you're told to move away from the attractive, the ceremonial stairs, and you'll go to more of a fire stair scenario where there are other stairs. So you're still going to see those historic stairs, but they're not part of the life safety component of the building. In other designated buildings you can go through, you can keep those elements, and you can actually, again, we said it, we can reconstruct and build it and change, and a lot of times you'll see the old railings, then you'll see another one attached on top. That's a very traditional way of handling those. That's if it's just a railing problem. And I have been to Flagler, I have seen a lot of the structures. The other big thing is those are masonry buildings. A lot of those are masonry, concrete, and stone buildings. So the expansion and contraction of those buildings is more consistent with the exterior facade. Again, the challenge with this building is the fact that it's a wood frame building and it's moving so much that the outside material and the structure itself are not moving at the same rate, which cause cracks, which has caused water mitigation. So that's where one of the big differences of that particular, those beautiful historic buildings do have a different set of bones within the walls that are not the same kind of apples to oranges in terms of this particular structure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, to add one thing to that, on the third from last slide, and I don't know if I'm able to get that back up or not, but the geometry of the building, being that it goes out in 3 wings with a center structure, takes away our ability to be able to improvise emergency egress in the middle. Flagler College, I've been there many, many times. There's not a building on that campus that I can recall that has this particular geometry, which really, really imposes a great task on us to be able to develop emergency egress. As you see, it's in 3 wings. So what happens all the way out in that back corridor out there, Basically, the only way to do it was against the staircase. It takes up most of that center section anyway. You'd have to put a secondary staircase in that middle section, which, again, would be an unrecognizable restoration. Considering that would have to be the emergency egress, and then you'd have a decorative one over here to nod to the historical aspect. It would be almost unusable aesthetically and functionality, but yes, ma'am.
So, this is also for you. Was there any time that there could have been some sort of, I don't want to say renovation maybe, but maintenance or some sort of addressing the property through the years that might have kept us from getting to this point?
The life safety, the ADA are functions of the design. The geometry of the building, and you said it very well, prohibits the ability to locate a central elevator, a central stair, and the fact that we have to, because of the wing nature of the building, we do have to put more than we normally would of egress stairs, ramps, and lifts just to make this, and again, you go up, up, and up. There's like 3 steps, and they're not even sequential. They're separated. So the design, the orientation, in no way would have been, maintenance would in no way solve these, as well as the ceiling height. Again, for a 100-foot-long corridor of students, this is the height of your ceiling. There's nothing we can do about that. Maintenance would not have prohibited that. Ductwork, return air, supply air, fire sprinklers, electrical infrastructure, these are all things that we need, the code requires us, and those have nothing to do with the maintenance. That's just the original design and the orientation of the building that would have not been affected by it. So, no, ma'am.
Okay, now I have a question for the college, and that is, how many historical buildings are still present on the campus?
We've never had a historic register building on the campus.
I don't mean that it's been registered. I mean just that it is one of the older buildings and not something that you built new.
I think that Sutton would be one of 3 that remain on campus. Dykus Hall goes back a ways to World War II, the 1940s. Wilson Hall as well. We've renovated that. Our nursing program is in that. The campus center, which was a club, Monaco, was demolished 2018, 2019. That was one of the older buildings, and Sutton would have been the 4th that's on. So we have 2, I think, of 4 that would date back to the 40s.
You have the chapel also.
That's correct. That goes back to the 60s.
I know about that because my grandfather was the architect on that building. So I guess the question I have about any of the older structures on the campus, are you able to do anything? Because there are a lot of people in the community who are very disappointed that Club Monaco had to come down, that this building will need to come down. And I understand some of the reasons, obviously, but they're concerned about some of the older structures in the city are located on that property. Obviously we have houses throughout the city, but, are you planning to structure it so that you can maintain the buildings that do exist, that are of an older nature, that may have some architectural or historical significance to the community? Will you be able to, going forward, keep those, or, is the plan to basically kind of rebuild?
We want to honor our past, and we have. I would point, for example, to Wilson Hall that's been there, and we spent significant resources to renovate that. And so, of course, and even this year, Hutchinson Auditorium, which you're referring to, we've done some upgrades there and plan to do that going forward. So yes, there's a concern for our older buildings and trying as we can to maintain them. And I would just reiterate, what we're here talking about is the sad result of multiple years of trying with Sutton Hall to make it work, and we just weren't able to. And so we'll continue in that same vein, trying to care for our history as we realize the best possible future for our students and community going forward. So yes, we share that concern, and obviously love our community and want to preserve as much as we can the history of the college and the community. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All set?
Yep.
Councilmember Chambers?
Thank you. I know it's a very tough decision. When will the community see plans or what's going to be going in there?
I would say early next year. Right now, we're working with the design studio to try to work towards a design that we can share March, April of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions,
Yeah.
Doctor. So I'm assuming from the presentation that the inside of this building is fairly original, as is the outside, that it's the same basic layout, rooms, hallways.
Well, the building has gone a significant change over the years, I would say. So since the construction in 1922, no, there's been multiple changes to the original. There's been quite a bit of differences there.
Okay. So what was the original purpose of the building? Was it a hotel?
Yeah, a hotel for the that was the clubhouse for the golf course.
So the rooms, the dorm rooms there, though, aren't the same rooms that they were the hotel rooms back in the,
I think many of them are actually. Yeah, there's some original sizing of the room. That's correct.
okay. So it was used as a dorm or as a.
It was as a dorm on campus.
Student
For
housing.
many years, it was it served a number of functions. It was a library, a cafeteria, and also a women's dorm for most of the time.
What do you plan to build there to replace it? Will that be student housing?
No, we don't need student housing. Over the past 20 years, we've constructed or renovated 3 women's dorms, or equal to our need. Currently, the plan is to have a space that would provide greater gathering space for our students and also for the community. We lack spaces which provide banquet-type areas or gathering spaces for our students to be able to get together and just kind of have life together.
Like a student center kind of?
Something like a student center or a welcome center. We're working on that right now. We hope also to be able to put some classrooms and some faculty offices in the building.
Would it be multi-floors like it is now?
Yes, we hope so, yes.
Similar square footage?
I think so. We'd
mean,
like to
not trying to
see, I mean, that's one thing that's currently under consideration is can we go more than 2 floors? Is that conceivable? And we obviously have limitations there within the city. And, but the current planning is for a similar square footage, yes.
So let me ask you this. I don't know how far along you are with the design
Yeah.
concepts of the replacement building. And I understand you want to build something that's modern and relevant in today's world, not, looking back 100 years and build some relic that nobody wants. But is it conceivable to construct a new building that is reminiscent of the old building? On the outside.
Yeah.
On the outside. Now, the inside might not look like that, and I understand what you were saying about the challenges of the 3 wings, but if you're doing new design, you can build in some stairwells. I mean, you have a blank slate, so you're not as restricted by the design of the building if you're building new.
Yes.
And so I realize that it's not Sutton Hall, and it's not gonna be Sutton Hall, and it's not gonna, I mean, I get it. But, it's kinda not a bad design, and you could probably do a lot with that to make it reminiscent of Sutton Hall and still have a nice modern building with proper ceiling heights and the public doesn't really go, well, they might if it's a student center, you might have events there, but I mean, most of the public doesn't know what the inside looked like 100 years ago anyway, so the inside could be modern, but the outside could be kind of reminiscent of, and that would lend itself to preserving some of the architectural features of the building, some of the original pieces of the building, and kind of putting them on display here and there. This is what the original building looked like, and I don't know. I mean,
You're singing our song, Mayor, and that's exactly right. The question is, so, I mean, right now we're looking at the aesthetics, and what we want to do, you may know much of the rest of the campus on that end has a kind of a Mediterranean feel to it. And we're looking at how we can maintain that in a modern way. And I think that bespeaks how do we, honor the Sutton aesthetic in the new building. So absolutely.
Because, I mean, it fits well on the piece of property.
Yeah.
Because it was designed to fit on that piece of property. It's got some, even in today's world, it's not a terrible design. You could do a lot with that, make an open atrium and, the entryway and.
Yeah, and you may know there are buildings in the area which harken back to kind of the old Mediterranean stucco and the clay roof, but have a modern feel to them.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're looking at right
Exactly.
now.
You don't have to have some, new
No.
modern design. It could be faithful to the.
No, absolutely. And we're also conscious, we live on a golf course. And so we want it to be a building that looks beautiful for those who are on the golf course and for the community. So we're very much concerned with the external look as well as the functionality and so.
So one more question for you, and this is not, I don't want to put you on the spot. This is not a question you need to answer now. I'll talk to you offline about this. But there is a USF professor who, Stephen Fernandez is his name. He's a nationally renowned expert in LiDAR. And he has mapped several historic buildings, probably some of the ones that you've worked on. You guys might know him. He mapped Union Station in Tampa, some of the historic buildings down there. I think he might have done some in Ybor, but I don't want to misspeak. But I called him and asked him if he would be amenable to maybe mapping. And for those of you not familiar with this technology, it's like radar or sonar except with lights. It's laser. And they can create a digital model of anything that is within hundredths of an inch of accuracy. And Stephen Fernandez was recruited at USF because he's one of the national experts in this technology. If they map something, the data volume is huge. In fact, it exceeds what we can even work with today. But you could conceivably, you can create an exact replica of this building using artificial intelligence or using imagery so that you can preserve this forever. We don't even have the computer technology today to take full advantage of what the LiDAR capabilities are. But once we have it scanned, we have it forever, so that when the computer technology catches up, we can display this someday in a digital museum or something. I mean, you could walk through the halls of Sutton Hall using virtual reality or something. You'd actually be able to walk through the building. Now, he told me he'd have to check with the university and find out, but he also had a lot of questions about the condition of the building. Is it safe? Can you get, would we want to do just the outside or the inside and all? And these are questions that I would like to connect your team and his team to.
Absolutely. Love it. It's fascinating.
But that might create at least a digital archive of this for future posterity.
Well, and maybe something we can display in the new building as well. And so
Yeah. We don't even have the ability to take full advantage of the capabilities until computers advance, which I know is really kind of hard to believe, but, so anyhow, I'll talk to you offline about
Thank you.
that. But,
Thank you.
other questions, council members? Carlos, anything? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of our November 4th meeting?
Second.
Move to approve.
I thought you said already.
He started,
Trying to.
he started.
I thought he did.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the row. Everybody cleared out pretty quick. I look down and I look up and everybody's gone. So there are forms you can go, Troy, it's up to Carlos, but forms in the back of the room if you wish to address the council. I currently have 2 requests to speak. The first is Mr. Loeb. Good evening.
My name is Charles Loeb. I live over in Terrace Park. And the first thing I put on there was a prayer. First of all, I want to say a prayer of thoughts to and emotional support for the people who lost property over during Hurricane Milton. The second is I want to say a prayer of gratitude for surviving it and all that and doing well. And, and for people like you honored tonight and other people who did help out to do the best they can to help us out go through it. And finally, a prayer of hope that that the rain and the cold weather will not do more to aggravate this community than already has been done. A couple of other things that, of course, I want to bring up. First of all, I want to mention the book sale. I brought in a flyer, and it's going to begin Thursday, 10 a.m. And I'll leave the flyer with Cheryl over there, and so you all can pass it around as a reminder. And it'll be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Also, I was wondering, and I brought this up to the Terrace Park Neighborhood Association last night, about your centennial program. I was wondering, is that online entirely, or would it be possible? I have some contact information for them, because they are interested. The leadership is interested in being involved with the city centennial and supporting the city centennial. And I was kind of hoping that, we could get together. When I'm saying we, the association, can get together with you all and help make this even better for you and for us as well. Another thing I did, much as I hate to make this meeting request this meeting be even a little bit longer, I was wondering if they had that meeting downtown for the National League of Cities, and if they did, if you all would want to talk at least a little bit about that. I'm sure that would be very, very interesting for people to know what you all are talking about if they had the meeting, and what you all be talking about with the cities nationwide. And finally, I do want to say this, but I'm going to be very brief about saying, I don't have that much time anyway. I remember Mayor Ross saying that people have to go and speak for themselves when it comes down back on October 15th. Come and speak for themselves, dealing with TICO and all that. I did speak for myself with my bill. I wrote 6 pages, but that's just for starting on the notebook. I'm going to give them a chance to absorb that, and then I'll have another, I don't know how long it's going to be, and go into more detail on the billing. But the idea, the important thing is that the mayor said, that people have to speak for themselves and how they feel, good or bad as well, depending upon the service. And I thank you all, and have a nice evening.
Mr. Loeb. Juan Carlos Perez, our newest board member on the Historical Preservation Board. Good evening, Mr. Perez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening, council members, Mr. Bahia. I wanted to say how dismayed I am that on the 100th anniversary of our city, we just heard this proposal to demolish Sutton Hall. I'm not confident. The track record of the school is pretty lousy, and it goes back to documentation from 1988. There was a survey done of properties in Temple Terrace, the only one of its kind, by the Tampa Historic Hillsborough County Historic Preservation Board, an entity that doesn't exist anymore. And they mapped 400 buildings, out of which close to 60 were determined to have historical significance. Sutton Hall is one of those. Already back then, 40 years ago, it was recommended that the building needed renovation. And so what happened that the school never did anything really, or sent it to be nominated in the National Register. To put it in perspective, the study has a map, and this is what we lose when we lose our properties, and we risk becoming another Florida town with strip malls and gas stations. The blue stars are the properties that we've lost. The green star is Sutton Hall. And the concentration of buildings, the stars here, these are all the buildings from Florida College. So the questions that Councilmember Fernandez and the mayor asked were right on point. And I would urge the school to be, because I think of a school as a place of creation, not of destruction. So I asked them, rather than be talking about the 6 stages or 5 stages of grief, why don't we talk about the joys of resurrection, or let's say restoration, renovation, and reconstruction. And I want to end, there's a local preservationist and contractor by the name of Danny Moody, and he authorized me to read the following questions. The reason he's not here is because he was in Tallahassee today, precisely attending an event where $21 million were being dispensed throughout the state for historic preservation projects. And this is a perfect case, Sutton Hall, of a building that could have been that could have benefited from such an initiative. He wants to know if a nonpartisan construction professional was consulted to provide an unbiased opinion on the building's structural integrity. And is there funding and a concrete plan in place for the Sutton Hall building space in the unfortunate event that it is razed? Or will it share the same sad fate of the historic Club Morocco and the other buildings in the map, which now is a grass field? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Consent agenda is adopted. Next is a resolution approving a contract with Granger Maintenance and Construction, Inc. for the East 127th Avenue Lift Station Rehabilitation Project. And our city engineer, Brian McCarthy, is here to explain.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council.
Brian?
Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and this evening I'm here seeking approval to award our East 127th Lift Station Project rehab to Granger Maintenance and Construction. This lift station is in the northwest corner of the city in Pleasant Terrace. Here in the figure, you can kind of see the purple lines are going to be our pipe network in the existing conditions. Then the L in the white box is kind of our existing lift station. And so with this stormwater improvement project, we decided to split this up into two phases. The first phase is being the stormwater lift station rehab, which is going to be new pumps, new generator, and new control panels and other miscellaneous items. And the second phase is the stormwater easement improvements, where we would be looking at a new drainage inlet, regrading, retaining walls. So the first phase of this project will use the remaining balance of our American Rescue Plan Act funding. And phase two would no longer be tied to ARPA funding, and we would look at using streets and stormwater funds to complete the rest of this project. As the city manager mentioned during one of the previous meetings, the city is considering purchasing one of the properties adjacent to the lift station, and that would kind of alter our phase two plan. And so we would be kind of considering a stormwater pond rather than making improvements to the easements. So to kind of recap, phase one would kind of close out our ARPA funding requirements, and then phase two would get funded just through a different funding source, and is also kind of currently on pause while we work through an additional scenario. In terms of our procurement process with this bid, we advertised back in September, and in October, unfortunately, we didn't receive any bids from the contracting industry. So thus in November, or at the end of October, we started looking at other options within our purchasing manual on what we could do to procure these funds for the lift station. And so we looked at doing we found a wastewater lift station rehab that the Hillsborough County has. And it was an opportunity to piggyback off of their contract, given it's a slightly different in terms of like water quality as being one of the major differences between these two different types of lift stations. We reached out to Granger, and they were amenable to the piggyback option. Once we went through their contract, we noticed that there were 4 items not included within our city bid compared to what was included in the county bid. And that's makes sense when it comes to our preferences, when it comes to our pumps and generators. And so we're looking at within our purchasing manual, we're allowed, staff is requesting the city manager to use this detrimental exception. And to quote the purchasing manual, because of the nature of the commodity or service, competitive bidding is impossible, impractical, not advantageous to the city, or cannot be obtained. Considering that we advertised the project once already, we weren't able to obtain any bids. We did look at the piggyback option, but unfortunately we just weren't able to secure all the items within our project. And so, based upon those reasons, we're proposing to use the county's contract to piggyback and then use the detrimental exception for the last few items. And so with that, staff is just recommending that City Council approve the expenditure of $608,169 to Granger Maintenance and Construction to rehab the East 127th stormwater lift station. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council members, if you'll let me ask 2 questions and then I'll go down the dais. I might save you some time. Mr. Ingram, would you please? You're okay with this per our purchasing manual?
Yes, yes, we discussed this in length,
Okay,
and it is very reasonable. It's an ARPA project. They did try to go out to bid. They made
you're good
every
with it,
effort.
that's all. Okay.
We're good.
Mr. Schoen? You're good with it? Okay, council members, questions?
I do have, how
Yes.
much, we're breaking this between phase 1 and phase 2. How much of the 608 is going to be phase 1?
All of it will be phased.
So this whole thing is all phase 1? Okay, all right, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have any idea why we received no bids?
I think one of the reasons is the contracting industry is just flooded right now with work.
So does, no pun.
That was a pun. That's good. I like that.
Yes.
Engineers want to have fun too.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Waiting all day to say that.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Okay, so Granger did not bid, but they have a lot of work going on. So I guess what I'm concerned about is they didn't think the project fit into their schedule, or they weren't interested in the project, so they did not submit a bid. But how are they gonna do the work? How do they have time to do the work if they previously didn't think the project? I mean, they would have bid if they wanted the project originally, so now they're agreeing to take it as a piggyback on the existing Hillsborough County project, but I guess I'm not understanding the thought process behind this.
One of the reasons, again, I can't speak on behalf of Granger, but one of the reasons might be just the stormwater lift station aspect of it. Again, they're all focused on the wastewater aspects, wastewater projects. And so it just might not have been on their radar when the bid popped up on Demand Store or on the city's website.
Okay, so, and since we did not receive any bids, how do we know that this pricing is a reasonable price for the work that we need to have done?
So I would think it's reasonable in that the majority of the priced items was in the county contract. So it's already been kind of vetted once in terms of the dollar value.
Okay. And then my last question is for city manager. Well, I don't know, you can direct whoever, but, so it has to do with the stormwater issues that area has had and the thought process of buying one of the properties. Would the second phase, well, first off, what will this first phase alleviate? And then will the second phase, when will we know what the decision is, whether we create a retention pond or go with our original thought?
So the first phase is sort of the biggest item of this project, which is dealing with the lift station, basically rebuilding this lift station. It was part of the whole project from day one.
Right.
The second phase is somewhat in question right now because we've in the last month or so taken a different tact because we have an opportunity that we were not presented with, let's say, a year ago. We would probably have that resolved, I would imagine, and within the next month to 2 months at most, I would think, that we'd have some resolution. I think both parties that are involved here would probably want to get that to a point where it's before you, and we can tell you this, we're gonna go in this direction and recommend that to you. Or we could say it just didn't work out, and we're gonna go back to the original plan.
Okay. All right, that's it for me.
Good, thank you. Council members, any discussion? I guess we're past the, is there a motion?
Move to approve the resolution, move to approve a resolution approving contract with Granger Maintenance and Construction for the East 112th Avenue Lift Station Rehabilitation Project.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays? Okay, resolution is adopted. Next item is a resolution approving an emergency stormwater repair with Cross Creek Environmental, Inc. at the Temple Terrace Golf Course Hole Number 7, which we've discussed here previously, and our city engineer will now explain.
Good evening again, Honorable Mayor and City Council, Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and I'm here this evening seeking approval for our emergency repair work around Temple Terrace Golf Course Hole 7, stormwater project to Cross Creek Environmental. So when we were first notified of the issue back in September, we reached out to a couple contractors to get an idea of what the cost was going to be. Unfortunately, one of the contractors backed out, just again, based upon the construction industry right now, it's just filled with work for everybody, opportunity-wise. So our second contractor, our other contractor, Cross Creek Environmental, stated that they were interested in doing the work and could get started. We're going with the emergency procurement route because we wanted to complete this item during the dry season that we're entering into now. If we were to go through the formal bid process, we were expecting it to take about 6 months to complete the bids, select the bidder, and for them to then mobilize into the area. By then, we would be entering the wet season. On the figure on the screen is kind of a bird's eye view of hole 7. There's 3 issues. There's 2 erosion issues along the northwest and the southwest portions of the pond, and then the pond control structure ended up collapsing. Here are a couple of field pictures that we took. The picture on the left is of the erosion issue on the northwest corner of the pond. And then the picture on the right is the erosion issue along the south portion of the pond. Our contractor is going to refill, raise the drainage structure back up, reattach the pipe, and then for the left side. And then on the right side, looking to add additional fill and compact that pond berm back to where it was before. On the next couple pictures, the picture on the left is of the outfall control structure. That's where the berm failed, causing the structures to collapse. One of the reasons why we think it failed is during our review, we noticed that there wasn't any riprap on the downstream end of the structure that was originally part of the design plans. On the picture on the right is field staff's work to help shore up the berm to help prevent it from eroding more. We also have silt fence further downstream to capture any silt that's running further downstream. And with that, staff is just recommending approval of the expenditure of $167,875 to Cross Creek Environmental for the emergency stormwater repair at the Temple Terrace Golf Course, Hole 7.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, Mr. Ingram, same question, if you'd come up and please. Does this meet the criteria for our procurement rules?
Yes, it does, due to the emergency situation, and, well, outside of the rules too. Just wanted to make a point out that we do have money in the street improvement, which all stormwater projects fall under. We have money under the reserve to cover
I just
this.
want to make sure that everything we're doing is according to our rules.
Yes, yes.
City Attorney?
Yeah, Florida statute allows for no bid
Okay,
in emergency situations.
very good, thank you. Council members, questions?
I do.
I do.
Councilmember Fernandez?
So, it's not really a question, it's more just for people that might be listening that might say, wait, this is a pond on the golf course, this is a water hazard on the golf course. Can you explain why this is actually the city responsibility?
So this pond does accept runoff from the roadways, and it was permitted through the Water Management District. for treatment and attenuation, mainly because of the roadway piece of it. Rather than just directly discharging into the Hillsborough River, we agreed to treat and attenuate based upon the current standards at the time that it was constructed.
But it's part of the city's stormwater management that just happens to be located in this area. I just want to make sure people understand, if they're listening, that it's not the city repairing something that would be a golf course responsibility.
Yes, that's correct.
That's it.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who has reviewed the fix to make sure that it's going to work and sustain into the future? Because I think
Sorry.
outside of, I mean, is it just internal, or we talked to anybody else about it? Because we thought what was there was secure to begin with, and it failed with an afternoon rain.
It also failed because there wasn't any additional riprap on the downstream end of that structure.
I haven't been there in years. It's been a long time. That berm has been there for a long time without a failure. I'm not saying what we're doing is wrong. I'm just wondering, have we talked to anybody, any other engineering entities besides, unless you've looked at it, this is your professional opinion, then that's fine. But is the fix going to last?
So what we are doing is we are adding additional matting to this edge of the berm, as well as riprap on both ends.
How far down?
Probably no more than where the control structures are.
All right, thank you.
City manager.
I just want to pick up a little bit on what Councilmember Schizzler just pointed out. So one thing to just note is we're doing our research now because of all the stormwater we've had, all the issues. If you compare just the months of July, August, September, and October from 2023, those months generated about 19 inches of rain for this Temple Terrace area. This year, those same months generated 54 inches of rain. So all that water, even though it was an afternoon rain that kind of pushed that over the edge, the ground was already saturated. So it was probably going to go at some point. That afternoon rain just pushed it through. So I want to make sure that the public understands there's a reason why that pond collapsed, and there's a lot of environmental factors that went into that, in addition to the fact that the riprap was obviously not there. So we're hoping that we don't have more of these, but there's extenuating factors, environmental factors that impacted that this year.
Well, the failure occurred prior to Helene and Milton. So it was that heavy afternoon, the heavy Sunday rain that we had where it originally collapsed. And so it was, we could have that again in a couple of years. I just want to make sure that we're not just putting a Band-Aid on it, that we're actually going to try and do everything we can to make sure that it's complete and secure. I'm good with it.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve a resolution for an emergency stormwater repair with Cross Creek Environmental at the pond off of Hole 7 at the golf course.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Next is a resolution to authorize execution of a community development block grant interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County, and our Finance Director, Jim Ingram, is here to explain.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am pinch hitting for Jennifer Newman, who took ill today. And just a quick note, sorry she missed the presentation night because she had a lot to do with our finance team responding to the storm. Now, to the CDBG Community Development Block Grant. To retain access to the city share of the Community Block Grant funds provided for council approval is the fiscal year 24 interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County. This agreement shall commence upon execution by both parties and shall remain in full force and effect until March 31st, 2026. The funding for the projects must be expended by December 31st of 2025. Any funds not expended under this agreement must be returned to the county to be reprogrammed into the county's CDBG budget. Funds made available through this agreement are utilized to provide benefit to low and moderate income persons. The following activities are funded in the proposed agreement: replacement of water mains, sidewalk repair, resurfacing roads, ditch maintenance, and pavement markings. It is recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Hillsborough County and the City of Temple Terrace to fund initiatives under the Community Development Block Grant Program in the amount of $542,933. And one final note, this is larger amount of money than usual, but that is because, and you'll see it actually on the first page of the interlocal agreement, that they are moving 2 years of unexpended funds and projects into this particular year, along with the projects for this year. So that was the county that wanted to do that. And that explains the amount being a little larger than if it was just 1 year project or projects in 1 year. And I stand for any questions, and
Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy's also here if there are any.
Thank you, Mr.
Questions?
Ingram. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Mr. Loeb?
Yeah, very briefly on this. I think he said $933. The motion says $993.
Sorry, I missed.
At least on my agenda.
Oh, on the 542,993.
Yeah, I think you said 33.
I'm sorry, I might have misspoke. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Council members, do you have questions?
Sorry, I do.
Councilmember Fernandez.
It's just one question, and that is, do we already have the projects delineated, or is this a block grant that is just a pool of money that we will be drawing from throughout the year?
I believe we have the projects delineated, but Brian can speak to that.
They're in the budget.
But we have the specific projects that will
Yes, they're in the
utilize this funds. That's it.
Any other questions, council members? Is there a motion?
Move to approve the resolution to authorize execution of a CDBG interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Next is the first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance to adopt a 5-year capital improvement schedule of projects for fiscal year 24-25 through fiscal year 28-29, and incorporating a 10-year long-term improvements for the multimodal transportation district for fiscal year 24-25 through 23-34 into the schedule of projects. I'll open the public hearing, and City Planner Anaya is here to explain. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Yes, this is the first public reading and hearing to adopt the 5-year capital improvement schedule of projects for fiscal year 25 through 29, and to adopt the 10-year transportation projects for fiscal year 25 through 2034. The CIS, Capital Improvement Section Schedule of Projects, has to be updated annually per Florida statutes, and it's adopted by ordinance. The Planning Commission staff coordinates with the Finance Department to obtain information on the capital improvement program. The CIP program totals $71 million for fiscal year 25 to 29, ranging from the various program areas. The Planning Commission then extrapolates the data from the CIP with projects affecting the LOS, which they find totals $50 million for fiscal year 25 through 29. And they also coordinate with engineering on a 10-year transportation project plan that gets included into the CIS schedule of projects. The Planning Commission finds that the CIP and CIS schedule of projects is consistent with the comprehensive plan. They actually approved the resolution last night, so I do have a copy with me if you would like that. But Planning Commission staff will be here to present at the second hearing and public reading. Staff recommends City Council approve the first reading and public hearing and schedule the second public hearing and reading for December 3rd.
Thank you, Ms. Anaya. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Mr. Loeb?
Definitely on this one. I was
You have to come to the podium, sir. State your name.
Do you want me to fill out another form or anything like that?
No.
Okay. What I was noticing that you did not mention specific projects, maybe on December 3rd, that they will be mentioning specific projects. I can think of, obviously I've worked with Councilman Schisler down at Hart, and other people and other times over at FDOT and all that. And of course, the top of the thing that comes to my head would be a direct connection between USF and the city of Temple Terrace, for example, especially if it's by premium bus transportation, if something like that would be on the plan. But there's probably a lot of other comment I could give you on that. If I could actually see what exactly it is, maybe after December 3rd, or maybe if there is something in writing about the specific natures of what projects they would happen to have in mind for this area and for you all specifically, especially with the stadium scheduled to be opening up in September of 2027 on the USF property. Thank you.
Other members of the public wish to comment? Just a reminder, council members, this is an annual thing we do every year. The project lists are long, very lengthy. They go out 5 years in one case, 10 years in another. So they are attached to the agenda. They've been made available to the public, but we're not going to spend 3 hours going down the project list and discussing each one. Also, as a reminder, the projects that are projected out are placeholders, and when we create the budget every year, some of those projects may get changed or eliminated, or other projects get added, so they're not necessarily that we're committed to buying that truck in 2027. We may buy that truck next year or decide to not buy that truck at all, and, so these are placeholders. So, are there any questions, council members, for Ms. Anaya? Okay, very good. If that's the case, then I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, providing for the annual modification and update to the capital improvement section of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan for the City of Temple Terrace, pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes, by modifying and updating the 5-year capital improvement schedule of projects for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 through fiscal year 2028 through 2029, and incorporating the 10-year long-term improvements for the multimodal transportation districts for the 2025 through 2034 into the schedule of projects, which incorporates by reference per the Comprehensive Plan Cap Policy 1.5.13, Hillsborough County Metropolitan Planning Organization's MPO Transportation Improvement Program TIP, Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Hearts Transit Development Plan TDP, and Hillsborough County Public Schools Facilities Work Program, providing severability and effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the ordinance to adopt the 5-year capital improvement schedule of projects for fiscal year 2024, 2025 through fiscal year 2028, 2029, and incorporating the 10-year long-term improvements for the multimodal transportation district for fiscal year 2024, 2025 through 2023, 2034 for the schedule of projects on first reading.
Second.
That was a mouthful.
I had to put it far away so I could see it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Ordinance 1576 will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. Next item is a second public hearing of a resolution adopting the final site plan for property located at Site B of the Woodstork Plaza plat, which is part of folio number 199554-0732. I will open the public hearing, and our city planner, Miranda Anaya, is here to explain.
Hello again. Yes, this is the second public hearing and reading of SPR 2403. This is an aerial view of the subject property and the surrounding area. It will be subdivided into two from the folio number as shown in the Plan Development Master Plan. The proposed acreage for the subject property is 1.01 acres, and the applicant is requesting a car wash establishment. This was the PD master plan that was approved in 2017, and it's part of the Telecom Park DRI. It was approved for 6 sites, and the site before you is for Site B. The project was approved with 11 conditions, and then it was later amended to include automobile washing services. Here's the site plan for the car wash. DRC has no issues with the site plan. The applicant did submit a parking study that staff is in favor of. According to the EPC, Lot 7A was approved for mitigation, which is the area in red, for 4.7 acres in the 1985 Swift Mud permit. In 2017, environmentalists conducted a wetland delineation and came to 5.94 acres, which is shown in yellow, and proposed that only 4 acres actually needs to be mitigated. And that coincides with the plat. The applicant is proposing 8 feet to the wetland, which differs from the Telecom DRI requirements and the LDC requirements of 100 feet. The applicant is also requesting to obtain building permits and plat before CO instead of platting the property first. In this specific case, staff has no objections, and this will help the completion of the last 2 lots of the PD, and Site C will come before you at a later time. Here are the elevations for the car wash and the signage associated and the sign locations. DRC recommends approval of the final site plan. Community Development recommends City Council approve the second reading and second public hearing by resolution, and the 7 conditions that I read aloud last time have not changed from the last public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Anaya. Are the members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council members, questions? No questions? If there are no questions, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the resolution.
A resolution of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, approving final site plan SPR 24-03 for a car wash for property located on the southeast corner of East Fletcher Avenue, Telecom Drive, Lyon, in Section 11, Township 28, Range 19, Portfolio 199554-0732, subject to any conditions of approval applied by the City Council, providing for correction of typographical errors, repealing all resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Sure. Move to approve the second public hearing of a resolution adopting the final site plan for property located at Site B of the Woodstock Plaza plat, part of folio number 199554-0732, including the conditions as listed.
Second.
Good.
Motion and a second, and we're all proud of you for remembering to include the conditions.
She was ready.
I know the city attorney was excited, so, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Council, we have noticed we've been at it over 2 hours. You want to take a 5-minute break, or you want to push through?
Keep going.
You want to keep going? Everybody wants to keep going? Okay. Next item is a resolution. If that changes, let me know. Stop me. Resolution approving final adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. Our Finance Director, Jim Ingram, is here to explain.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council, again. At the conclusion of fiscal year 2024, there were several expenditures and revenues not included in the City of Temple Terrace's adopted or mid-year amended budget. Section 166.2418 Florida statutes allows the governing body of each municipality to amend a budget within 60 days following the end of the fiscal year to account for such expenditures with matching unbudgeted revenues. Unbudgeted revenues may include a portion or all revenues exceeding the budgeted amount for fiscal year 2024. The exhibits that were attached 2 through 5 contain the detail. I can go over each one. It's pretty lengthy, or I can just highlight a few to however you think is appropriate.
Why don't you highlight them for the public, please?
Okay, sure. I'm sorry, all of them are
How
just,
many is all?
there's 1.5 pages.
Okay. Just highlight a few.
Okay. Thank you. We had property, auto liability, and workers' compensation expenditures and matching insurance proceed revenues of $139,450. These are claims. The revenues are the claims that we get from the insurance company to cover our expenditures for these several property, auto, and liability workers' comp. We have an additional contribution to the building fund, and with matching interest revenue of $307,347. Our interest revenue was over $600,000 above what we budgeted for general fund. And across the board, our interest revenues ended up being above what we budgeted in every fund. There is various supplies, services, and maintenance expenditures with matching FEMA COVID reimbursement. Yes, we got a COVID reimbursement due to some hard work of our staff. And that's $124,780 that we're able to cover related expenditures. The biggest one was the police building land purchase expenditure and a matching revenue from the police building and council reserve projects. This was, if you recall, from the Rollerson Ranch property sale that we put away money to use for this very purpose. This past year, we bought the land over on Harney Road. The total, with everything added in, was $1,644,082. And there is still some money left in that council reserve. We did spend all the police building reserve was $1.5 million, and we took some from the council reserve as well. The CRA Riverside Park project, we had engineering expenditures, and we used matching TIF reserves revenue of $323,067. And we still had about $50,000, $40,000 left to add to our TIF reserve, which is up around, I believe, 70 or 80,000, should be at the end of the fiscal year 24. We had wastewater treatment expenditures. Mostly this was primarily from the city of Tampa bill that we have to pay that went over budget, but we had sewer sales revenue that exceeded budget. So we're able to apply $124,232 to cover the overage in the city, the wastewater treatment expenditures. We also had water distribution expenditures that went over, but we had also matching water sales revenues of $159,349. So both in the sewer sales and the water sales are budgeted revenues well exceeded, or the actual well exceeded the revenue that was budgeted. And we also had some of the FEMA COVID money there that went toward the water and sewer fund, sanitation fund. We approved, the council approved by resolution on September 17th to buy a new truck. And so we're just doing the amendment, make it official, and using the money out of reserves, which sanitation reserves did go up this year due to actual revenues exceeding actual expenditures, which is very good news. Those revenues also went up. And I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. These are all posted on the agenda, the whole list. If you have any specific questions on any of these, I'll be glad to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council member questions? Very good. If not, is there a motion?
Move to approve the resolution for to approve adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget for appropriating and allocating funds.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
Thank you.
Resolution is adopted. Next is a resolution approving the addition of a full-time utility billing specialist one. And Public Works Director Jason Warrenfels is here to explain. Good evening, Mr. Warrenfels.
Staff seeking the approval of the resolution adding a utility billing specialist to the Public Works Department, primarily assigned to the sanitation division. When the budget was formed this year, this position was not included in the budget as it was discussed, but the volume of work and the amount of accounts that sanitation has added, it has come, further up on our schedule to add this position. So, as you know, sanitation, they added over 40 accounts. We are running 7 days a week. Currently, the Amazon account, we run close to 16 hours a day serving that account. So, the current admin assistant for Public Works, the public service representative for our building, is their time is mostly consumed with doing billing for sanitation. I've worked with the finance department in this position. This position will be housed in Public Works on an interim basis until the renovation of the utility service center, and then that position will be moved over into this building and still service sanitation, and it's funded through the sanitation enterprise account. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfels. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Seeing none, council member questions? No questions, okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the addition of a full-time utility billing specialist.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion of the motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution passes. Thank you, Mr. Warrenfels. And thank you also for creating the situation that necessitates the hiring of a new billing clerk. So
Yeah, I
that,
think it was a nice segue that Mr. Ingram said that the fund's making money, so now I have to expend some money.
so thank you for creating that additional revenue.
Do you pay him for that comment?
Next is a resolution, our last resolution, declaring municipal elections results, and City Clerk Cheryl Mooney will explain.
Try to make this quick. So our municipal election was held in conjunction with the county and the state election. And we had qualifying in a week in August with Mayor Ross turning in the necessary documents for mayor, and he was running unopposed, so he automatically became our new mayor. And we also had two residents running for one slot on city council, and they were Eric Kravitz and Karen Mikulski. And per Florida statutes, the election was held on November 5th, and he received the more votes, so he won the election. And this basically is declaring and accepting. The county canvassing board met yesterday and and declare the results, certify the results, so you're just doing a formality of approving their,
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council members, any questions for the city clerk about this? Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the certified election results?
Move to accept the results as certified.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Carryover council business. I have one quick thing. I'm sorry. I know it's a long meeting, but this is an important one. So a while back, I asked you in this section of the meeting for authorization to look into discrepancy between the city rules concerning the city's manager's ability to convert unused sick time over to vacation time. The conflict is that the city rules do not permit the city manager to do that. It's the only employee that's not permitted to do that. However, his contract says that he is permitted to do that. In fact, the previous city manager's contract said that he was able to do that too. So that's not new language that was changed for Mr. Bahia. It was in there before. The council approved me to work with staff to try to run this to ground and figure out why that was put into the city rules to begin with. We did some. I didn't scour Laserfish for hours, but we don't know why it was put in there. His contract does prevail over internal rules anyway. So what needs to happen is the rule needs to be revised to take that language out so that it mirrors what the other employees have and what his contract already permits. But it would look very peculiar for the city manager and the HR director who reports to him to revise that rule to his benefit. It could look self-serving. So what I'm asking for the council to do is to somebody make a motion to direct the city manager or the HR director to revise that rule to remove that language so that it's done publicly and it doesn't appear like there's any kind of backroom shuffling going on.
I'll make that motion. We move to approve the,
Are there any questions about, did I explain it well enough? You
Yes.
guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, all right.
make the motion to instruct the HR director to bring back to council, or to make the changes that are necessary to bring the rules into compliance with the contracts. The contract is written. Is that sufficient, Pam?
Yes.
Well, okay, but
Yes. It would probably be better if you directed the legal department to revise the rule so that there is not a conflict
enough.
with the city manager's contract.
fair enough.
Okay.
Modify the resolution, modify the motion for the resolution to include, to be performed, or the change to be performed by the legal department for modifying the rules to reflect the actual contract.
We need a
Did I
renewed,
second that one?
yeah, we need a renewed second.
Okay, I renew the second.
Okay, discussion? So just to clarify, there's only one sentence that needs to be
Yeah.
taken out. It'll take you about 15 seconds, it'll take you longer to open the document. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays, thank you. Any other carryover council business?
I have one quick one.
Yes.
I was remiss, on behalf of Terrace Community Middle School, we had to trot through the Terrace last, on the weekend of the 9th, and I did not publicly thank the Leisure Services Department as a sponsor, and B, all the work that they put in and the staff that was required to pull that off was very successful. We had 476 runners, which was the largest yet, and they did everything they could to accommodate our needs in light of the fact that the Arts and Crafts Festival was going on at the same time. So on behalf of the school, thank you very much. If you could please tell Corey, I was hoping she'd stay, but anyway, thank you very much.
Other council business, carry over council business. New business or board reports? Yes, James?
Okay, so I too want to thank the leisure services staff and the public works staff, everybody that got Woodmont Park and Woodmont Avenue and the golf course ready for the Arts Festival. It was one of our better festivals. If people were there, you know, it was a lot of good attendance. It went very, very well. We had a lot of the public there, the artists, most of them sold pretty good, some didn't, but that's the nature of the beast. But thank you very much, staff, everybody in the city involved with getting that going. As previously mentioned, the library, the Friends of the Library has their book sale this coming Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I wanted to point that out. That money goes back to the friends that donate it back to the library to help buy materials for the library, so it directly benefits the library. And to bring up something on the Florida College presentation. I didn't bring it up during the presentation because we don't do that, but I don't know if it's appropriate to try to find out. They mentioned that, you know, they had an extensive study that resulted in the building to be demolished. But could we find out if there was a cost if they were to renovate it to current standards? What that cost would be and what the cost of a new building is to see the difference? Just curious, and I think it was something for them to be good if they're going to do any kind of other community presentation. So
We can ask.
we need, you know, I don't like to give assignments out unless everybody agrees with it.
Everybody okay with us asking?
I mean, we can ask, they don't have to answer.
No, they don't.
We can ask.
I just thought it'd be good for the public to know if it's, you know, triple the cost or something, you know. Okay.
Okay. Other new business, board reports? I'll be quick, I promise. A couple quick things. So, city manager and I have another meeting with USF leadership concerning the construction plans for the stadium. As you know, the groundbreaking was last week. We do have a meeting that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I don't remember the date, but we are going to be meeting again with them to discuss traffic, parking, noise, speaker orientation, those kinds of things. We'll keep you posted. At the first meeting, and I'll repeat this when Councilmember-elect Kravitz is here. I thought he might be here tonight, but at the first meeting in January, we will elect the vice chair for the year. And at the second meeting in January, did I say July? I meant January.
You said January.
I did say January, okay. Second meeting in January, we'll do the committee and board assignments. Two things I'd like to mention to you, and I'll repeat it when Mr. Kravitz is here, is one, we rotate the vice mayor duties around. Everybody up here is eligible except Mr. Kravitz wouldn't be. And we usually pass that around, which is fine. But I want you to take this seriously because the previous two mayors have not finished their terms and the vice mayors had to become the acting mayor. Now, I don't plan to go anywhere. I plan to be here till the bitter end and you're stuck with me. But, that's my plan. I might get hit by a bus on the way home and next thing you know, the vice mayor becomes the mayor. And you could be acting mayor for a long time until there's a special election. So please keep that in mind when nominating or accepting a nomination. I mean, are you really prepared to do this? Because, I'm on like 12 different boards. And so, this is a lot bigger lift than it used to be years ago. And so, anyway, I just mentioned that. The other thing is the committee and board assignments, there probably will need to be some changes this year because of a new council member as opposed to us just doing it every year. I have some, the mayor gets to make these assignments, but as much as possible, I like to make them according to your wishes. So if all of you, and Cheryl, if you could share this with Councilmember-elect Kravitz, if all of you would please let the city clerk know what your preferences would be, I will try to the best of my ability to accommodate them. Now, keeping in mind that, there is a progression and some of them are require a little more I don't know. There's some of them are thornier than others, and so, you know, be careful not to sign up for heart unless you're willing to, you know, get your hair all pulled out. So, but I would like to know if you'd share that with the city clerk. The last thing I have is the National League of Cities Conference was in Tampa last week. I did go. Good conference, 4,000 people there, 49 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico were there. I don't know who the missing state was. I'm guessing maybe Hawaii, but I don't know. Lots and lots of people there. I went to a lot of workshops. There's good things and bad things about living here in this region. In fact, Jane Castor and I were talking about this during the conference. The good thing is that you get confirmation that your region is really kind of on the leading edge. We're pretty squared away here. Hillsborough County, Tampa, St. Pete. We are really, when you go to these workshops and they're talking about what other cities are doing in other regions, and we're sitting there workshop after workshop going, we've been doing that for 5 years. I mean, it really, the bad part of that is that, you know, there's people from other cities going like, this is cutting edge, and Jane and I are sitting there going, okay, you know, but I did pick up some good things concerning, and Carlos and I are gonna meet about this tomorrow to kind of taking all this stuff back to him to discuss. So there may be some presentations coming to you in the future about some of the things that I learned that I think might be useful here, as long as staff, you know, thinks that they're good ideas. So it was worthwhile, it was beneficial. Luckily it was close, so we didn't have to pay that much, but it was a good conference. So. And that's it. Other new business or board reports? Okay. All on you, Carlos. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In your backup this evening, there are actually 3 sets of reports. This is the quarterly report for the last quarter of fiscal year '24 for the council's fiscal year priorities. We also have a report on the city's departmental budget goals, as well as the quarterly report on ARPA and capital projects. Happy to answer any questions.
Council members.
Stuff. Yeah, thank you.
And I just want to make sure, to reiterate, it's attached to the agenda, so any of the public that wants to see the details can access the agenda online.
And then I have a few more items I wanted to touch upon. At the last council meeting, several residents from Bullara Drive spoke to the council and asked us to look into the matter of flooding in their neighborhood. We have done an investigation over the last 2 weeks, thanks to the work of both utilities and Public Works primarily. And we've completed that investigation. We have reached out to the residents and scheduled a meeting with the residents for, make sure I get the date right here, December 18th, Wednesday, December 18th at 6 p.m. at the Lightfoot Center. Obviously, the council is welcome to attend, and we will be presenting the facts that we found and talking about, you know, the future with the residents.
Carlos, are we going to publicly notice that meeting so that if council does attend, the council members are free to, it seems odd to, because I don't want a situation where the city manager and I are there and then nobody else is, because it's not publicly noticed.
Okay, I'm looking over at the clerk, and it looks like I'm getting the affirmative
Yeah.
nod. Okay.
I wouldn't want to be a council member there under those circumstances. They should be able to interject too, so.
Next, if the council will indulge me, I'd like to ask Mr. Tinch, our Utilities Director, to come up and give the council and the public an update on the Fowler Avenue sanitary sewer project.
Good evening, council. Just quick update. I know we're all aware that we're working on an emergency repair of a sewer main that failed under Fowler Avenue. We're currently bypass pumping that system. We have initiated coordination with the utilities along that corridor. We've completed the draft design for permitting and construction. We have initiated permits through FDOT and the EPC. EPC because it's a sewer system, they have to be involved in that aspect. Of course, FDOT, it's their right of way. The site contractor has secured Belvin's as the jack of bore contractor to complete the work effort. Anticipated costs at this time are estimated at approximately $700,000 for construction. There will also be between $300,000 and $400,000 associated with the bypass pumping effort, as well as the initial cleaning inspection that was conducted right at the very beginning of the project. So we're looking at approximately $1.1 million to complete this effort. Construction is anticipated to begin the 1st of December and will take 2 to 3 weeks to complete. So all things work well. Hopefully by the 1st of next year, we'll have that system up and fully running and functional again. Funding for this effort, we'll be looking to tap into the reserve that we have in the Water and Sewer Improvement Fund. That is that fund that receives money through impact fees. So it's fairly healthy at this time. So be working with finance to see what amount of that we can potentially use to pay for this effort. If that runs over that fund amount, we'll be looking into potentially rearranging some of our CIP projects within wastewater and pushing those out if they need be to ensure we have proper funding for this effort. Do want to note that this will have no impact on the current rates for the Water and Sewer Fund.
Thank
Any
you, Mr.
questions?
Tinch. Council members, any questions about that?
Thanks
Thank you,
for the
Mr.
update.
Tinch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing I have is if I could ask Mr. Warrenfelds to come up to give us an update, not only just on, not only on debris, the debris collection effort, but also on some of the other stormwater issues going on in the community right now.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. The first thing I'm going to update is Soaring Avenue. We had a depression in the roadway formed on Soaring Avenue. This depression seemed to grow rapidly after notification. The crews have been working on that area, making the repairs. The west side of Soaring Avenue, the southbound lane, they exposed that, found a cavity under the roadway. This cavity was formed, the pipe when it was put in 1985, in the top of the pipe there were 2-inch openings, and those openings were either for lifting or the inspection after it was installed, and then they were grouted shut. So during this past storm, the grout pushed out of the holes, and this is what the belief is from the inspections. This is what created the cavity under the roadway. So crews opened the roadway, they put flowable fill in there, and they closed up the westbound lane, or the west side lane. They will return tomorrow to complete the east side, and then they'll repave, and we'll be fixed out there. So that's the update on Soaring Avenue. Debris, so I'm happy to announce that we are in the home stretch of debris removal. There are still piles of debris in the city. We are aware of those. Public Works takes a fair amount of phone calls every day, letting us know piles that appear. Some of those are piles that appear that folks just drop stuff off in yards. Illegal dumping could be what it's claimed, but we don't know the difference. So this week on Friday at noon, the self drop-off vegetative spot at Harney Road will close. We're closing at noon so that the crews can clean that area up before we go into the weekend and make sure it's secure. The second round of vegetative and the C&D will be completed on Friday afternoon citywide. So we expect the remainder of this week they'll do the final touch-ups. We are aware that there's probably some pile somewhere that we missed, overlooked, didn't see, what have it. So we will have a few days the following week to capture those. The DDMS sites that we've operated, the Florida College location on Temple Terrace Highway, is completed their grinding, their reduction of the material. They have about a day and a half left of haul out, and we are hauling this mulch. Thankfully, everything worked out. This mulch is being hauled to a mulch vendor in Thonotosassa, and it will be repurposed. The Harney Road site is going to take a little bit longer. So Temple Terrace Highway received just under 25,000 cubic yards of debris. So quick haul out there. Harney Road is sitting with, it will sit when we're done, about 85,000 cubic yards of debris. So the haul out there is going to take a little longer. I anticipate we get close to the January 1st date before we're completed hauling out on Harney Road. The Class 3 household debris, sanitation, we worked with our debris haulers. We did not have to open the site on 113th Street. We worked it, sanitation provided roll-off bins. We went bin to bin with this. It saved soil testing, it saved DEP requirements, it saved the city time and money. So we worked that out. Sanitation has trucks hauling this for the contractors, self-hauling, so another savings, which is good. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfeld. Council members, questions?
I just have one comment, go.
I have just a real quick question. We have some areas where trees are precipitously hanging over fences and walls and stuff. Are we going to go back and tell the homeowners they need to fix these, or are we just going to go in and do it? A case in point, Gillette, across from Greco, there's a tree hanging over and it's actually touching the ground, and kids are walking underneath of it. I don't know how secure it is because it's behind the wall, behind the burned out house. So I don't know, how can we address that going forward? I don't want to answer now, I don't need an answer now, but just, we need to maybe come up with some way to look into that going forward.
So we do have, thank you. We do have areas like that where trees are hanging in the public right-of-ways that we will address.
Okay.
Again, this is part of Harney Road debris. Will continue on for a little bit as we finish mopping up some city. There are some stormwater ponds. Soaring Avenue has one. There's one on 62nd Street. There's a tree laying in there. So we will continue to move some of our debris there. But yes, we will get to those areas.
Okay.
Council member, oh, yes, city manager.
Mr. Warrenfeld, could you also talk to the golf course and the trees that are down the golf course? Because that's something that we've put off, but we will start addressing that.
So the golf course obviously had a fair amount of trees that fell on the golf course. Those have remained, and today we finalized the plan working with the city arborist, the golf course grounds superintendent, and the debris haulers. We will start removing those trees on Saturday. The crews are out. They're going to be cutting them up the remainder of this week, making sure they're at curbside. The haulers will pick those up Saturday, Sunday, and then we should have the golf course completed. Some of the damaged trees will need to be completely removed, and I've checked with the arborist, and some of those trees were on the list that needed to be removed. So we're just going to go ahead and take them down since they're already damaged. But we will work through the golf course, making sure that it's curbside, get it removed this weekend, and then the golf course should be good.
Thank you, Chief. So, Councilmember Fernandez, you had something?
Yes, so I wanted, a lot of these questions come up, if you're on Facebook, Temple Terrace Bulletin Board, et cetera, and people they're asking questions about all of these things that you give us the information about at the meeting. So I want to know, for one, to the people who might listen or watch this meeting, please follow the city official pages, either Facebook or Instagram, or I'm not even sure all of the social media that's there, but I mean, I encourage you all to follow this so that you have a reliable source of information, but also in our city water bill or something, anything that we mail out to people, can we put a note on the bill that lists our social media so that people know the various places they can follow or subscribe, or et cetera?
We should be able to do that. We'll look at that and we'll report back.
The only thing is, we've learned that the water bill's not a really great way to disseminate information because it doesn't correspond to our city limits.
Well, right.
So like my neighborhood doesn't get Temple Terrace water, we don't get,
Get the bill.
and then people in Sonoma-Sassa get their bill, then they don't live in, so it doesn't, there's 35,000 water accounts, and then there's sections of the city that aren't on city water, so it doesn't really, I mean, you get a lot of people, but you're not getting.
Or we're not getting everybody, but I guess I'm just, as we send things out to people, if we can include that information. So like, even if somebody is not a city resident, but they are a water utility customer or sanitation customer, this would be interesting information to have, and a lot of what's been posted. But anyway, there's a lot of, there are a lot of questions that get answered through what we put out and at the meetings that people still ask about because they're not either watching the meeting or they're not on any of the social media accounts to see the answers. So that's all. However,
And I will say to that, I mean, for the debris piece, I myself have noticed some of the comments on the Facebook world. It's always a good, safe measure just to call Public Works.
yeah.
The folks that answer the phone over there are well-versed in what's going on. So they have the answers, and if they don't, they can get them quickly.
So not to contradict what the Public Works Director has said, but actually one of the things we're trying to do is go away from all the phone calls to Public Works. We actually have a system called See Click Fix. Joel, are we gone live with See Click? We're working. The See Click Fix is an application that's used by communities around the country. It's a very easy way for folks, most people have a phone with them. They can just, if there's an issue, if they see debris, or if they see anything, they can go on, there's drop-down menus, it's an easy app to use. You can geolocate immediately, we take a picture and send it in, and you can get a response. You're sure to get a response and follow up versus having to wait on a phone call, et cetera. So, in the interim, I get it. In the interim, yes, the phone calls still work, but we would like to streamline that process if we could.
Good job, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfeld. Mr. B, you still have the floor.
No, sir, I have nothing else. Thank you.
I have one thing. Would you please, maybe you or maybe Mr. Warrenfels or something, would you maybe follow up with Joel Brown over at TICO? I've mentioned to him quite a few times, I promised a resident an answer to her concerns about the Deer Park circuit. And every time I talk to him about it, he goes, yeah, I'm gonna get you the answer, but he has, it's a bundle of questions, and some of them, I guess, were posed by Mr. Warrenfeld, so he's trying to get, so anyhow, I'm not getting the answer, but I owe a citizen a response, and I don't want the citizen to think this has gone by the wayside because I'm not getting back to them. So, Mr. Warrenfeld?
Mr. Brown, we've been in constant contact the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
We have a meeting scheduled this Friday with a resident from Deer Park in the upstairs council, in the conference room.
The resident's gonna be in the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, so, yeah, we've been in contact, and the Deer Park issue, Mr. Brown's bringing some folks from his team that will address those concerns about service
Okay.
over there.
Well, that's even better yet. So, with the city manager's permission, would somebody just close the loop with me after that so that that citizen knows that I honored my promise? If I tell you I'm gonna get back with you, I do. I don't want them to think that I just didn't, if you don't mind. Thank you. Good, that's good. That's even better than, I think. And nothing else? City Attorney?
Yes, I've got 3 lien reductions, all on the same piece of property. This was at 11901 North 53rd Street. There is 1 case from 2021 and 2 cases from 2022. The first one, the violation was peeling paint and staining on a wall, I believe. That went on for at least a year, and the lien rose to $23,050. This has been settled for $500 plus the city's costs of $250 for a total of $750. The second case involved an inoperative motor vehicle because it had no tag and a flat tire. That went on for a year and a half, and the lien rose to $9,225. The settlement amount was $750 plus the city cost of $250 for a total of $1,000. The last one was a fence in disrepair and a fallen dead tree. That existed for a year and a half. The lien rose to $33,450. That was settled for $1,000 plus the city costs for a total of $1,250. We have received payment of $3,000, so those three have now been settled.
Good, thank you. Any questions, council members? Anything else?
Nope.
Directors, anything? You just want to go home. I don't blame you. You guys have been at work a long time. Listen, thank you for your patience tonight. It's been a long meeting. Thank you for your work, the work of your teams. I hope you know how proud we are of all of you, and hope that that also gets filtered down to your team. So, thank you, and we will be adjourned.